Go. Gotta start the music. What's up? What's up?
What's going on?
How you doing, Dave, bro?
I am doing pretty good. I am doing just fine.
What's up? What's up? We got Mitch Briggs on.
What's going on?
How you doing, Dave, bro?
Hey, we got an echo.
It was me. My bad. Craig Taylor's on. So, guys, this is going to be crazy different. Okay. Yes, this is. Thank you, Craig. We are going to give you an opportunity to jump on this call. So, if you know, coming, what night is it? Thursday night is the 1st of August. And look, we got virtual backgrounds now. And my hair is disappearing. Say hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Look, he's on fire. So what we're doing is we're testing out Zoom because we're trying to get ready for Y2K for the end of Google Hangouts, which has been, hey, Craig Couch, Craig Taylor, and Mitch are all on. So we're testing this out to see if this works. If you guys want to come on the show with camera and all, or if you just want to talk, you can do that too. Here's, I guess, how we'll do it, because I don't want you to really give away your, I'm gonna lower the chair a little bit. I don't want, oh, there's a cat in my picture. I don't want you to give away your email addresses unless you want to, but if you'd like to, join the show, hang out and just chat for a while. And again, this is just all a big test, right? So if you want to, actually, I don't even need your email, do I? I can just give you the meeting ID. So if you, right, Dave?
Yeah, you can. Actually, I was thinking too, if people want to come on and ask, Q&A as well. You got 2 hosts here. Maybe we'll get a couple more, because I know we sent that link out. So if you want to come chat, Q&A, whatever.
So if you'd like to join us.
I am on fire, am I? Aren't I?
837. I'm typing in. I'm going to give you guys what the code is. Okay. All right, here it comes. So if you download Zoom and you put in meeting ID 110-837-218, you can join us on this special edition of After Dark. What do you think? Is this a bad idea? You guys can put a comment there in the chat if you want, if you don't like it.
Hey, I am going to require one thing for this. They've got to have a crazy hat.
All right. Well, you heard the man. So there you go.
Yeah, it looks like this is going good, man. Dave, I like this virtual background thing.
I do too. We can change it, actually, if we don't like what we have. That means I have to get a picture of Gorilla and the account and password. Yes, you definitely need to give us your routing number and account number and the check card number hasn't been used. So there you go. Yeah, we sent out a little text message to Nicole and to Gorilla and Brandon and Calvin, and if they're available, hopefully they'll jump on as well. And again, it's just thanks for I guess subscribing, because this is the only way you would know is if you subscribe to the Paramotor Crazy channel. So it's a whole more reason why to subscribe to all the channels, so that, and hit the bell so you know when we go live. But
my hand looks freaky.
I can't wait to see the first. Let me see. Do it again.
Oh man, that looks cool.
Oh man. Like you're going through a time warp or something.
Oh,
little boys with their toys.
Hey, gotta play. Actually, I was just gonna say, on your left side corner, it looked like you had a raccoon down there at the corner.
That was a cat. It was one of the many cats that roam around this house.
Oh, it was like blending. It was weird. It like came out of nowhere.
I have never been a cat person, but yet we have 9 cats in this house right now. And as of yesterday, ball python now as well.
Oh man. Oh, pythons are cool.
My daughter wanted it, so I said no. And my daughters always laugh because I always say no to pets, and then it's always me saying, "Can we take it on vacation with us?" Tony, jump in. Like I said, if you're just jumping in now, we'd love to have you join us live on the show. If you have Zoom, jump on the ID I've just listed up there. It's 110-837-218. So if you don't have Zoom, it's free. You can make a free account, or I think you can even join on as a guest and then just put in the meeting ID as 110-837-218. And pledges are now coming in.
Dave, did I hear you when we were doing this pre-thing that we could actually take phone calls?
Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet, but that'd be kind of cool too.
Kind of cool.
But, even if someone doesn't want to show themselves for some reason, they can still jump on and keep an avatar up, and that's fun.
I'm thinking I'm gonna get on like one of my other cell phones and call into the show and start asking some pretty weird questions.
No idea what number. I'm messing around. I have no idea what number to call, but again, we're just starting this and trying to figure this out. So when Sunday comes around, we've got something. But although, there was a premium for this program, but I really like it. You do too, don't you, Dave?
Yeah, the interface is absolutely awesome. I really do.
Yeah, we can.
So I'll be giving them some money a little later on.
Get your own. Yeah, look, there you go. Now I got Paramotor After Dark behind me. I don't know if you can see it.
I like that. You need to move that After Dark up top about shoulder level.
I know. I can't. I'll have to play with that and work with that.
I like it though. I absolutely.
I tried doing that and messing around with that earlier, but that didn't look good either. Unless I just sit like this the whole time. I don't know.
I don't know. We got some people actually watching. I guess we need to entertain them or something.
Holy cow! Who would watch this stuff?
I want to
talk about. What do you want to talk about? So someone passed away today?
Yeah, actually, one of our fellow pilots passed away today in Florida. It was up on YouTube, or I'm sorry, it was up on Facebook. Yeah, Mike McGuire passed away in a paramotor accident. I don't know any of the details. That's all I'm really going to say about it right now. I know it was from witness reports, the Florida paper. Newsprint that witnesses reported the wing out of control in a spiral, and he went down to the lake, and he was DOA when they got to him.
Oh, it's too bad.
So that's all we know right now. So yeah, pray for the family. Yeah, that's 2 in a week.
Horrible.
So guys, anybody that flies out there, from what I can understand, and again, I'm just speculating, but from eyewitness reports on both of them, spirals were involved. So guys, if you fly, I was just told by a very great pilot that we all know that the only time to use a spiral is if you're getting cloud sucked, because you're probably going to die anyway. And a spiral, you can G out really easily and you will never wake up. So watch those spirals, guys. That's all I can say about that.
What do you do, acro? Do you do any acro?
I do spirals, but not locked in, not real deep. I get my wing probably about a third below horizon, and I'm feeling about 3.5, almost 4 Gs. Mm-hmm. But even now, I'm gonna pretty much stop those. I'm gonna start, my wing tip will come down below horizon. They've about 10 degrees now, and I'll start backing out of them. I do wing overs. I have not been inverted as of yet, but I'm getting close. I've been taking it really, really slow. I do enough now to get me out of lift for what I need to do with the free flight, and that's about it. I've practiced spirals in case I ever do need them.
Okay.
So,
we have Craig Taylor.
Craig Taylor in the house.
We gotta get Craig in here. Oh man, where are you, Craig?
What's up, Nick Griffith? I'm at Amazon and he is bored.
Let's see, Craig, send me a message here if you're having issues getting in.
Yeah, Tony, it does seem like there's a lot of crashes lately. It's, like I said, you can't speculate to, the pilots or what happened. But, it comes down to one of those things where it's happening a lot, but, just be careful, guys. Be careful.
We had Craig for a second. What happened to him?
I saw that. I see him on the replay now.
Yeah, he's sitting there eating. Don't tease us. Now, who's this?
I like the hat, though.
I do. Now this is coming up as your phone number. It doesn't say a name. Who is this that we're looking at here? Okay, Craig says he'll be back. I can't hear you. Why are we not getting audio on them? Hang on one second. We're still working through this all.
Have them muted.
There's no option for me to unmute them. Wait a minute, unmute all. Can that work? All participants are unmuted, but still not showing a microphone. Unmute all.
That's weird.
All right, let me look at my system here. Keep talking, Dave. I'm gonna see if I can figure it out.
Oh, I'm just going through the chat here. What's up, fellas? Hey, Kevin. Kevin can fly in the house. Let's see here. It takes a minute for us to see how it goes and works. His lips ain't moving. It looks like we got some commentary going on. Well, whoever you are, I definitely like that hat.
Wait a minute. Can we chat?
Sure.
Hold on. I'm sorry, guys. Again, this is the first time we're doing this.
Hey, this is why we're doing this, Dave. You know, we said that we needed to kind of get things ironed out. So,
1 second.
Does that work?
Oh, there. Hey, there we go.
Who is this?
Me?
Yeah.
Me.
Briggs. Mitch Briggs.
Mitch Craigs.
Mitch. Hey.
What's up, Mitch? Thanks for joining us, man. Love the hat.
Well, you said you wanted a fancy hat, so there's a fancy hat.
There we go. How'd you get your audio working? That's awesome.
You know, when in Rome.
Mitch, thanks for joining us. This is so much fun.
There's a little hesitation on the audio on my end, I think.
What the heck? This is awesome. Anyway, so we got 18 people now watching. Mitch has joined us. Craig was just in for a second. If you'd like to join us, just like Mitch is right now, this is a lot of fun. Look at there's 3 of us on the screen right now. I love this, man.
Yeah, I love this.
And we have a limit. We can only go up to 100. So all you got to do.
Nick Griffith, my first day of instructor training yesterday. That is awesome, Nick. Should join us up here and tell us about how the first day of training went.
Good idea.
Trike Flyers, Indiana's there. Hey, I need a jungle scene. Damn it. No, I don't want to do that because I'd probably fall off.
Nick, I'm trying to figure out how to get on you here. How to change your. Oh, here we go. I'm gonna change your name here. There we go. Now your name is Mitch Briggs. See?
There we go.
Got your name. Now everybody knows who. You know, and this is great because we sit here, Dave, and everybody watches us and everybody sees our face and we're watching these chats. And some of these people in the chat, I feel like I've known forever.
Right? Yeah. There's some people in here that, you know, I've never met, but I feel like I know them because we talk to them.
This is a blast. So no one rule, just don't cuss.
Yeah.
You know, you can do fingers. But...
we actually have a cuss jar right here, guys.
It's empty.
No, actually, it's not. See?
Oh, it's not?
Well, you got to get Woody on the show.
Yeah, no, it's got quarters in it.
This is a blast. So I was starting to say, if you'd like to join us here, like Mitch is, download Zoom. It's free, right, Mitch? Did it cost you anything, or did you already? Cost nothing. You enter in the. Well, why don't you tell us, Mitch, how you did this? Because I didn't do it. So tell us how you did it.
Well, yeah, you just mentioned to go to Zoom and download it. I went to the App Store, downloaded it a second, typed in the code that you had there. The only thing I had a little issues with is the audio down in the corner, and I worked through that issue. I just had to give the app some more permissions.
Awesome. And now we've got sponsor Craig Taylor. Hey, Craig. Craig?
Hey, how do you guys like my shirt? You know what that symbol is, don't you?
I do not, but I like it.
You don't? You don't remember that 1980s TV show? What was it? The Greatest American Hero.
Greatest American Hero.
Oh my God!
It's so familiar.
Yeah.
Because he crashed every time.
No. Da-na-na-na-na. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Yep.
Craig Taylor, do we have? Oh, Craig's gone again.
Yeah. Hey,
Don't
here's a
say
good
his name.
commercial spot. Here's a good commercial spot. Hey, guys, I noticed that we're getting 15, 17 in chat. Just real quick, Dave and I are testing out a new platform. And as we said on Paramotor Nation just a few days ago, make sure you guys are joining everybody on the panel's personal YouTube channel. Trike Flyer here, Paramotor Crazy, Phoenix in Flight, and of course, PPG Gorilla, and Brandon McLeod as well.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. What does that mean? I look like Jesse from Toy Story. Oh, Dave, Dave, look like Jesse from Toy Story. That's funny, Craig. Sorry.
Way to ruin my commercial. But guys, hey, make sure you're joining all our channels so that way you don't miss an episode of Paramotor Nation, and of course the After Darks. We love doing this, drinking a couple cold drinks, beverages of choice, and pulling the After Dark. So that's right, Toy Story.
I was gonna say Harrison Ford there.
Hey, there we go. I just disappear. How do you like
Whoa,
that?
how'd you do that? Come back.
Woo!
Whoa, dude, this is getting psychedelic. Mitch, what do you think of the shows, man?
Oh, I like it. I've learned a lot from these shows between Robert Michaels and you guys, watching Woody's videos, a lot of the other ones out there. It's really helped me out as far as just getting a feel to a degree of what to expect. I'm almost completed my training. I actually switched. I got a new trainer now. He's closer to home and really good background. He's been doing it since 2002, so I feel real lucky to have him help me out here. But
Where did you start? Would you mind telling us a little bit? Where did you start training? Where are you training now?
I trained over. I'm in Michigan, so I ended up doing a training program on the east side of the state, and it was just on the weekends. But it just became so cumbersome trying to get good days to go out there to take flight, and I decided to try it on my own near home. I got a few pointers from my instructor, and it didn't really go so good.
Okay.
So I banged up my gear a little bit, but I literally did not even have a scratch on myself. I was pretty fortunate there, but I just got it back together about $1,000 later, and
not too bad. That's not bad.
Hopefully here soon I get in the air. I've been going at it since April.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many flights do you have now since April?
Pardon?
How many flights do you have?
None yet.
So you haven't been off the ground yet?
No. Well, I did get off the ground a few feet for a couple seconds until I hit a fence and then the pavement.
Oh, no, man.
Ow.
Yeah.
We're not going to count that. That is not the way you're going to go down as saying this was my first flight. That does not count.
Well, that's why I'm wearing this shirt. I was wearing a Captain America shirt when I did it the first time, so I figured I better wear a Greatest American Hero shirt.
I'm changing your name now on the screen to the Greatest American Hero.
Oh gosh. Maybe humble pie.
That is awesome. So who are you training with now?
Well, he's not officially training anymore. I'll just say his name is Jeremy. Some might know who he is.
Okay.
He's out in the Holland area. And
I'm sorry, Dave has no interest in your story. He just likes to look at himself out of this hat.
Oh, the green screen, man. I'm listening.
Oh, my hair just disappeared.
it's a green screen you guys got there.
Yeah, mine's. So I actually do have a green screen. Dave, this is an amazing program because Dave doesn't have a green screen and it's coming out pretty good. Although my hair keeps disappearing.
Yeah, I'm gonna work on the green screen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So tell me about the situation where you had the blackout. Was it the leg straps were too tight around your leg, Dave?
No, actually it was too loose. So I was flying, it was my second flight, foot launching. It was an Atom 80, which is what I'm going to be getting here in the next couple of weeks. I'm waiting for delivery. And I only weigh 155 pounds, so it should be perfect for me. And the seat board, it may have been flipped the wrong way. Again, I don't know because I've never flown foot launching before and that's never happened or it's been an issue. So, but whatever the reason was, the seat wasn't coming up right. And so because it was loose, it wasn't holding onto my thigh. I would just slip right down into the groin. And so it was just cutting off the blood in my left leg. And now, since I've told this story, I've heard a couple people say, yeah, that's happened to me, or I've known some people that it's happened to. So as I was flying up there, I just kept going, oh, stay awake, stay awake. And I was having a hard time breathing as well. So when I came around and I was coming down, all I kept thinking of was just at least land on your feet and roll to the front so you don't break a prop. Because Mike had warned me, goes, we don't have spare props, man. So you break this, your training's done. So fair enough. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Well, hey, glad things worked out. Nothing got damaged, yourself included. So
Yeah. I was more worried about Mike's props. I didn't want to break his props. So cool. So you're training now. Well, you're self-training or you're training with somebody?
no, I'm training with a guy out of Holland. His name's Jeremy. He does it just kind of part-time, a little here and there. I think maybe felt a little sympathy for me when I was looking for parts to fix my Maverick back up. And he's a dealer for Parajet still, and had some time on his hands. And it's just kind of fine-tuning the end there, especially having a voice in the ear when I take flight. And when I did it myself, I just had my brother there, and I told him, all right, if my wing looks good, then I'm taking off. And on the way back in, call out my height as I'm coming in for landing. And I used to skydive like 23 years ago, so I kind of thought that I thought I had it. I really did. But
different, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm not used to leaving the ground with a wing. Usually it's just coming into the ground.
And Dave could probably tell you that, when you're skydiving, and imagine it's a different flare, but now all these wings are different from each other. Some you don't have to flare as much, and some just a little bit, and vice versa.
I kind of went on a little sensory overload, I think.
Okay. So at this point, this is good for anybody that's new to the sport, hearing someone that's new. Where are you?
And what I did was I sat back in my seat too early. And it really, with my size and the Maverick, the way it's set up with that harness, some guys, they got to push themselves up. But for me, I just had to lift my legs up, and I was seated right in it, but it swooped back down towards the ground. I pulled my right arm down to naturally try and catch myself, and that's where I pulled the right brake, made a sharp turn into the fence. The back side of the lower part of my frame is what caught the top rail on the fence. So I lunged forward, which tore the bottom of my harness away from the paramotor. Fortunately, I was still under the wing enough to where I swung back around versus face planting the concrete. I ended up turtling and landing on my back. But like I say, I did not have a scratch. So I was fortunate in that. I learned a good lesson there. An expensive one, but could have been a lot worse.
So very quickly, I want to answer a couple quick questions. Keith is asking, am I a leg man now? Yeah, I'm what's the term? Biflyable? By fly guy? I don't know. And then Kevin says, yeah, Kyle just posted, do we stay here or do we go? I think I'm going. No.
Yeah, I'm actually watching Kyle right now.
Are you watching it? We could
I'm kidding.
We could actually do a screen share and watch it together.
Although, there you go.
Although no, I don't have 16 less views.
Hey, listen, if I want to see Kyle, I just drive about 90 miles that way. And
there's that. Yeah. Anybody else wants to come on, please? We'd love to have anybody and everybody. Bifly Actual. What's up, Calvin? Calvin, join us, man. Calvin is in the chat.
Calvin in the house.
Calvin, you got the text message, but yes, anybody that wants to join us, all you have to do is go to Zoom, and then let's put that ID back down here again. What was it? I gotta scroll back up. There it is. So I'm gonna repost it here. So Mitch, tell us, as far as like now, where are you at with your training? I mean, are you still kiting?
No, I've done quite a bit of kiting. In fact, when I was going to my other trainer across the other side of the state, it started feeling like I was advertising for new guys that he was getting into it, trying to get to sign on, because that's all I was doing over there is just kiting. And I have a wing over here too. I have my own wing, so I get plenty of practice with that. It's just once I put that motor on, things really changed. The dynamics were different. I wasn't used to having a throttle in my hand. We didn't train with throttles or any kind of a dummy throttle. So at this point, I'm working on aborting launches, just getting a launch going and then abort at the last minute, last second, and do that.
Never be scared to do that. For whatever reason, abort. I
Yeah.
mean, never be
Well,
afraid to shut it.
Yeah, and that's what he's getting me at, is to intentionally try and get towards that point where I'm right about to take flight, but then abort, and then just practice that, get comfortable with that throttle, the feel of that motor, the power of the motor on my back. Because even in the simulator, I was a little hesitant to go full throttle. He's telling me go through 3/4 throttle. I want you doing 3/4. And I was still kind of going soft on it. So he said, all right, I want you to just give it full throttle. Do not stop, full throttle, and hold it. So yeah, it's just getting comfortable with that, and I'm pretty close there.
Yeah. Have you ever not even turned the motor on, but just hold your brakes and your A's and just bring the wing up over the cage without even turning the motor on, just to practice how that feels? Do you practice that a lot?
No, I haven't really done that. Mainly, the one thing I really did a lot of kiting with is reverse launches.
Okay.
Just because it's just myself out there, and it's a pain doing forward launches. You got to disconnect, set it back up, all that. But
need them though. You're gonna need them.
I know.
So Dave, what advice would you give to someone as a tenured paramotor pilot? What advice would you give to Mitch as far as where he's at in his training, and what you would say the next several training sessions should be for him?
Well, it sounded like to me that the first thing you need to start doing is get out there and start doing those forwards. Don't do it with your motor at first. Just get into your kiting harness and start doing some forwards, because you're going to need it. If you're going to be a pilot that's going to wait for reverse launch conditions all the time, you're going to be flying a third of the time of what you otherwise would. Next step is just keep on kiting, get that motor on. And I mean, honestly, at this point, if you've got control of that wing, it sounds like to me, this is between you and your instructor. I'm not your instructor, nor am I giving you advice, to fly. But it sounds like you're getting close to the point to where you just need to go fly. Get up in that air, go enjoy it 15, 20 minutes, come back down, pack it up, and go home. Next day, get out there, do a couple touch and goes. And then what my recommendation once you start flying is probably for about the next 20, 30 flights, do nothing but touch and goes. Get up there, fly, come down, land, reset, go. Do that 2 or 3 times for the next 20, 30 flights. And the last flight of the day on your touch and go session, go fly for half hour, 45 minutes. Reward yourself at that point. Okay. And then after you got that down, you're going to have real strong forward launching technique. You're going to have real good reverse launching technique, and you're going to be able to know, okay, that wing's up, I'm coming into throttle, back straight, posture, let's go. Throttle in, don't sit in that seat, run it off the ground. And at any point, you'll start developing those skills and that feel. When I launch and start bringing that wing up, I'll just glance at my wingtip just to visually see it, and then I go to tactile feel. You can actually feel that wing. Start getting to the point where you start feeling your wing, you're going to know if you need to shut it down. Matter of fact, I'm fixing to post a video of a real lousy takeoff, which actually a prop strike too during that, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, for the next 20 or 30 flights, if you start taking flight, start practicing those touch and goes. I can't stress that enough. Get those touch and goes, get those takeoffs, those landing practices, because that's what's going to make you a really good pilot and be able to launch when a lot of people can't.
I'm not a trainer, obviously. I'm not even much of a pilot, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you kind of touched upon it. And my training was probably for foot launching was probably a little bit different because I did have the triking experience and I picked up extremely quickly on it. But like my thought is, as I was taught by Mike out at Fly My PPG, inflate, release, control, power, pressure,
posture, power,
pressure. Thank you. I know it's missing one in there, but it seems like once you're there, I mean, he's at power from what Mitch is saying. Why cut the motor off? The first question I ever asked Kyle Lowe on I think he was on Robert Michaels or he was in a chat. And the first question I ever asked him was, what's the biggest issue that you see new students making? And his answer was throttle basically not hitting the throttle. I forget the term he used, but not powering
Committing?
up. Power.
Committing?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Or
so-
they commit, and as soon as their feet leave the ground, they start coming off the power, which is a
Right.
real good way to break your ankles and your legs.
So Mitch, if you're under power, and why not just hold that throttle and go and run and fly?
Well, he doesn't want me to quite leave the ground yet. Practice on the boards.
Okay. Dave, have you ever heard that before?
I have.
This is new to me. I'm not
I've
anybody. I just don't
seen-
know.
I think one of the things he's seeing
me-
is that I'm not committing fully. I'm not giving enough. I'm not comfortable with that motor, and it did kind of scare me when I busted it up the first time. So I'm trying to get rid of that hesitation.
I by no means am an instructor at all. Although it seems like I'm starting to head that way with all the first flights I'm starting to witness. And in Wisconsin, I was starting to help out with instructing. I was actually going to do my apprenticeship out there. It sounds like to me with your mishap that he's getting you to take off, to feel that lift, to feel that wing, and then abort it. He's not ready to quite put you in the air yet, but he wants you to get that feel of what it's going to feel like. Dave, the same thing with you too, is if you start going more, with the foot, or if you start flying foot with any regularity, if I'm around, I'm going to put you through 20 or 30 touch and goes.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you have that skill set, because with the foot launching, it is trike. I mean, trike you can flip, but with foot launching, you can fall over, you can do all sorts of stuff with that as well. That takeoff, that inflation, the posture, the power, the run through, the running it off the ground is everything with foot. The wheels, you can just sit there and taxi at 8 miles an hour for the rest of your life. With foot, you need to get off the ground.
The easiest part, Mitch, the easiest part is the flying. It's a piece of cake once you're off the ground. It's the finesse of landing, and it's the challenge of getting your wing above your head, power up and running and keep running, and then getting in your seat. Right, Dave?
Yeah, pretty much. It should all be one fluid motion. I've actually taken a look at a lot of my videos, from last year as compared to now. And when I start doing that power up to check power on the engine, as soon as that throttle, I give my power up, I'm testing thrust, power comes off, that wing's already starting to come up. Start just getting into this, test power comes off, pull wing, and go. It just starts becoming fluid, and you start getting to feel everything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I did get it on video. My girlfriend got it on her phone. It's kind of humorous when you know that I didn't hurt myself.
Well, you need to definitely save that, and when you start getting flying, posting videos, make a real good crash video out of that, and I'll guarantee it'll go viral.
Well, yeah, some people told me I'd get a lot of hate if I posted it, so that's the only reason.
As a new pilot, you will. But get about 50 to 100 flights under your belt, then post it. So, you got to realize too, is as you start becoming into the spotlight and things like that, is everybody has an opinion, everybody's an expert, and for the large part, 99.9% of the people out there are good people. They want to give advice, they're friendly and stuff, but you get those one or two that want to critique you. So get some good flights, some good video, and then post it and watch it go viral.
There's always a few thumbs down with every video.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? That just means that we're doing something right.
I just don't want to give anybody any bad ideas, because they'll look at that video and say, somebody who's just coming into it and hasn't taken their first flight yet, they might look at it and say, well, that guy did everything wrong. I'm not going to be that guy. And he didn't even injure himself. So
one of the most humbling things you will find amongst anybody that shares their flying, especially people like David and PPG Gorilla and Phoenix in Flight, is we will post our fails. You watch one of our videos and it's always the perfect takeoff. It's always a perfect climb out. It's always a perfect turn. It's always a perfect this, that, or the other, anything. And I've seen this a lot with Woody too. Woody had an episode over at Aviator PPG where he just could not get off the ground no matter what he did. I mean, you're talking a seasoned pilot. And what I found within myself is, you go to my channel, you'll see a crash where I flipped in a cornfield, or you'll see a line.
That's my favorite video on the whole internet. That's the only one I watch usually.
That's why it keeps going viral. What I'm trying to get at, as a pilot, as you start progressing and you start sharing things, people, will want to watch you and watch everything perfect, but you become human when you make mistakes. If you post up mistakes where, you did something wrong, a brake line got wrapped or, whatever, even if you did get hurt, if you post that up, people learn from it. And yeah, you're going to get your hateful comments, but so what? You're also going to get a lot of people going in there saying, I never did think of that. Or, because of what happened to you, I now check that. And it's really important to do so. I recommend that you don't do it as your first video. Like I said, get some flights and videos underneath your belt and then go ahead and do it. But you will definitely help some people. Were you just blowing a kiss at me, Dave?
No, I'm trying to get my daughter to bring me a beer downstairs.
Oh,
I'm trying
to have her bring me one too.
And by the way, I just realized I didn't send the text message out to everybody, so they just got it now. Hopefully they got it.
Hey, look, my phone just went.
Actually, yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. So yeah, actually, those videos are my least favorite for me to post. Bless you. I don't like doing it, and it's sad because as I'm even editing it, I'm going, God, I know this is going to get more hits than other ones. I'd rather people watch.
Fly in the house.
What's that?
Kevin can fly in the house.
Is Kevin joining us? Oh,
what's going on, boys?
Oh, hey, Kevin, how you doing? I didn't know anybody else is here.
Well, I mean, you put out the invitation. I had to come and say hello and put my ugly mug on here.
What's up? I'm glad you're here. See, this is great. We can finally put some faces.
Hey, Dave.
Yes, sir.
We don't have to talk so much. We got.
Oh, you guys talk. I'm out. I'm gonna go get a beer. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna get something to drink.
Bring me a beer. I don't know if that'll work. Hi, Kevin. How you doing?
Dude, I'm fantastic. I'm actually was just sitting here going and entries to my logbook from the weekend. I had some awesome flights. You guys probably know I'm not a motor flyer. I'm a free flyer, but I'm on my path to motor flying. I decided that in the realm of safety and coming home to my kids, I wanted to start out by having the epic wing control and then putting a motor to it. So, and then on top of that, I will admit, adding $7,000 on top of the $5,000 I've already invested is, it's quite a bit. So step by step,
I got to say hi to Craig Taylor because he's been waiting. Hi, Craig, and bless you. How you doing, buddy? So your audio, is it working? Not really. Well, if nothing else, even if you don't have audio, it's eye candy for the show. So thanks for being here. Kevin, so you're just doing free flying.
To start with, I mean, I'm the grand moron who will openly admit, and any advice I can give to someone, the first one is don't do this alone thinking that YouTube can be your instructor. Mm-hmm. I was dumb and I went and got a cheap wing and a cheap harness, and I spent 2 years picking myself out of the dirt, trying to figure out ground control, safety control, and I was really just, for lack of a better term, I was a moron about just going and spending the time and money to actually have someone show me how to do it, which was dumb. And so some guys politely said that if I didn't actually go and get trained and certified and do it the right way, they would show up with scissors and cut the lines off my wing and not let me fly ever again. Wow. And I don't think they were joking about that. They were pretty serious. And, I don't blame them. They were trying to keep me safe. So I applaud them for that. I did, I don't know if you guys have seen my videos, but I did go and get certified. I went through Max Rock Paragliding and got my certification, my P2. Now, as I just entered my last entries, I have enough hours now to go get my P3 out of the way. So just progression. But like I said, I did 2 years of stupid training before I actually went and did real training, and that was hard.
Dave, take over. I'll be right back. I got to take this real quick, guys. Keep going. I'm sorry.
He's got to go get a beer.
So yeah, I mean, and then when I started flying, I got into a club, and the club that I got in with, I have found some great mentors, and probably that's the real deal in this community is the mentors that you find.
Yep.
The people that always will tell you don't know what you don't know they're not understating the truth. I mean, I started flying and I started taking collapses, and my instructor put us through SIV before he would even sign off our P2s. And just having the ability to go and fly midday and big thermals. And like this last weekend, I was peaking 6.2 meters a second going up. Yeah. Launch altitude is 2,700. I was topping out at about 5,000, which was MM5 was showing top of lift at 5,500. And
Nice.
I mean, it was the definition of lift all day, free lift. You just get in a climb, you go up, and then you go XC for a couple miles and goof around, mess around, wing overs, practice spirals. A lot of the things that I preach are getting comfortable in the safety maneuvers. Learning how to descend is, in my opinion, a real big one. Guys, they talk about cloud suck and they talk about things, but we as pilots, especially motor pilots, I know you guys like to fly the early morning and then the late evening.
I'm actually a P3 myself.
There you go. But the late evening is when you get the glass off, right? And so you get all of that element of the valley that starts producing lift. And even with the motor, you can get to a point where you get on big ears and the thing still doesn't really want to let you come to the ground. And learning how to do asymmetric spirals, learning how to do controlled wing overs and starting small, 90 degrees, practice your weight shift, practice your timing. No one's out trying to get on YouTube to be famous with acro, because if you are, you're already well beyond this show. So, we want to have fun. We want to go home at the end of the day. So it's just, for me, it's that control of safety. My instructor said it the best when he said, just taking off, flying and landing without getting injury is cool enough. Adding anything special, anything special, wing overs or asymmetrics, learning how to find your stall point. Guys have a lack of understanding, and I don't mean to be insulting to the motor community, but when things start getting rough, learning how to reset your wing, learning that stalling your wing is actually a great thing. Like, we're taught over and over and over, don't stall your wing, don't go parachutage, don't fall out of the sky. But when you get a nasty cravat and you're spinning out of the sky, breaking that thing and stalling it and starting everything over can be your best friend, because you're already falling. And
you're already heading to the ground. So
and then the secondary thing that cracks me up, and I've seen it with the SIVs that I've been to, is when guys let go and quit flying and they go to toss their reserve, is when everything goes back to normal, because they quit putting in everything wrong.
I've seen video after video of that reserve toss, and as that thing's just starting to go out, all of a sudden the wing just resets itself, and now you've got a bigger problem.
Well, I watched the guy this weekend, and he took a real hard front tuck, and I don't know what he was thinking, but his wing pitched back as he went into a real hard climb, and instead of him putting his hands up and letting the wing come forward, he went deeper into the brakes, and he went almost to a full stall. And then when the wing surged ahead, he went hands up, and then it took a big frontal on him. So he didn't wind up on a reserve. It opened up and he was able to fly out of it. But the progression of his active flying was 180 degrees timing off. And that's that kind of practice that I, as a newer pilot, as I go through this, I preach it as much as possible. Learning the glider control. And I think it all starts on the ground. A lot of the guys that I've been around that have been flying for years, that's kiting, reverse kiting, forward kiting, nil wind, high wind, all kinds of wind, anything you can get your hands on, always, to the point where it puckers you up and you have to have a friend grab a tip and pull the wing back down for you. You have to push the bounds as long as you remain safe. And the more you play with your wing, the more you fly your wing, even if it's just kiting it, the better off you'll be when you get into a situation where you take a 30% asymmetric and you're already weight shift and you're already on the brake because you aren't thinking about it. You're already doing it. But I get preachy about it because, I mean, I just, that aspect of flying,
actually,
my groove. So.
Yeah, no. What's funny about it is I'm a P3 free flight pilot. I know exactly what you're talking about. And we've actually discussed on the show quite a few times that, the free flight will definitely give you a better control of the motor. You're absolutely right. I mean, most people, if you're spinning out of control, most people aren't going to think about burying those brakes down to your hips and holding it. Hold it. It's going to be scary. You're going to fall. Your wing's going to be rattling all over the place, but it's going to stabilize. When it stabilizes, come to first position, let it stabilize. Come to second position, let it stabilize. Let it go. Get ready for your surge and fly away. And that itself will solve. I think I was told a full stall will solve pretty much everything except for one or two issues. And I think one of them was gift wrapping yourself. But I think there is one maneuver that a full stall can't get you out of, and I can't remember what it is, but it was pretty extreme. But and anyway, yeah, you've got to experiment with that wing, do it up high, and you got to know your boundaries, because if you don't, you can get yourself in real trouble.
See, and then
something happens, get yourself into a locked out spiral. You better know what you're doing.
I was going to say, and to follow that up, I got what I call the 3-second rule. Whereas if you can't put inputs in and you can't make positive corrections within 3 seconds, just go to the reserve. Yep. There's no shame in landing and being embarrassed versus landing dead. I mean,
I would rather land with my cage smashed and a broken leg than land dead. Absolutely.
So, Dave, I have a question for you. I'm sorry I had to step away. There's a family. We got a lot of family.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Oh, thanks a lot, Kevin.
Ruin the show. Man. That's it. Just shut it off, guys. That's it.
Good night. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Blow some music.
I don't have that guy.
That was the gavel. I had to slam the gavel. Court's back in session. Dave is proceeding.
Here, hold on.
What's more difficult? Is free flight?
Wait, I'm rolling the music. That's it. I'm rolling the music.
What's more difficult, free flight or with motor?
Well, I would say free flight, because you're going to be putting yourself into conditions that most motor pilots would probably not want to be in. A free flight pilot is going to seek lift, whether it ridge lift or thermal lift. A motor pilot is not, 9 out of 10 of us are not going to go seek that.
Okay. Welcome to the show, two-stroke motor expert, Calvin Rhodes.
Calvin.
How y'all doing?
Good, buddy. That's fun. We just need some women. It's like remember when we were kids a couple decades ago, and you could go onto these group chat things, it was a 900 number. It was 10 guys and 1 girl.
ASL.
What's that?
ASL. Age, sex, location.
That's back in them Yahoo days. Yahoo chat.
AOL.
I just dated myself.
I think I did too. I don't look it, but I think I just did.
Yeah.
So I got a question for Kelvin, actually. So Kelvin, did you have a chance to watch that video that I posted that Tim Garvey took from me?
Yeah, he pulled your stator off and the seal and stuff had fallen out. Yeah.
Yeah. So how often? So actually, Calvin, since you watched it, you may be able to explain that better than I would. Would you mind doing that? Or would you rather me?
I can try.
Okay. So from what I understand, so what does the stator do for those of us that don't know, that are just learning?
It's what actually energizes the ignition coil, basically. Some stators will have a charging coil for charging the ignition coil, and some will have charging for charging the battery as well as for the ignition coil. So.
Okay. So what Tim Garvey was saying in this video is that sometimes that wire will disconnect because of vibration, and so that could have been it, but there was a lot of oil that was inside of there as well, and that little circle thing came loose as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of bad stuff going on.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Is that common?
I honestly haven't seen that, but the fact of the matter is that Hearth monster that you have, I don't have any experience with that one yet.
Okay.
All. But looking at the video and seeing what he did, or what he's planning on doing as far as putting a sealant in there, is a good idea. Okay. It'll help to keep that from backing out. When I put new seals and outboards and stuff like that, a lot of times I'll use a gasket sealing compound that'll kind of cause it to stick so it doesn't back out.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I had to laugh there because Tony just put starting to look like the Brady Bunch. Kelby Cox just joined us, and if I'm looking at my YouTube screen, Kevin is right in the middle, which would make him Alice. So I'm on the top right. I think that makes me either Marsha or Greg. I don't know. We need one more, and then we're the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So thank you.
One thing, yeah. Now, one thing that I would be surprised that he did is if he condemns that stator without doing a short to ground check or a resistance check on it to see if the stator is good at all.
Mhm.
Good.
Well, I did order another one, and that's being shipped directly to him, and I'm
Okay.
hoping he has that tomorrow. So he told me a couple things to order, and I got that quickly ordered, and he's going to take care of all that for me. Southern Skies is who I order from, and they're extremely fast. So.
Okay.
Did anybody
Yeah,
say
'cause
hi to Keith Smith, by the way? Keith, hi.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Did anybody- yeah.
Lovely lady who was bringing us three very lovely girls. All of them had hair of gold.
Everybody's got to look around.
Like their mother, the youngest one in curls. It's the story of a man named Brady.
Sorry, Keith.
Sorry.
Calvin, did you have something else you wanted to finish with?
No, you just called my name. I wanted to make sure you could hear me.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. It's the first time I've tried setting the mic and everything up. I've done a
There
couple
you
of
go.
YouTube videos and just got the mic.
Awesome.
You guys did it, and I thought, that sounds like fun. I enjoy
is
you guys'
fun.
show.
And you know what? There's not. Someone said to me, "Oh, I was talking to Larry DeSico yesterday. He's Larry from paraorange.com. Great place, Kelby. There's a picture of Kelby and his son on the Para Orange website wearing their Para Orange shirts, right? He's a great guy. And he was saying, his son was going to do a show. And they said, yeah, but you and Brandon and Paramotor Nation came onto the scene at the same time. And I said, you know what? There's not enough shows. I don't watch TV anymore because I'm just sitting there watching YouTube videos. And to Kevin's point earlier, most of them are Kyle O videos. So, the more people that are out there broadcasting, just talking, I mean, it's fun. This is great. I don't know if you guys are liking this and enjoying this, but I think
I'm really enjoying this.
this is so much fun. Just hanging out, talking about paramotors. This is great.
This is a good forum. I like the way that we put this together, Dave.
Awesome. Cool.
So I gotta ask, when your motor sputtered and then you yanked the cord, it came back to life. Was there that bit of hope in your body where you're like, we're back in business, the day is still on, we're still having fun? Or did you immediately think, oh crap, I need to start heading back?
If you saw the video, I started turning back right away. Yep. I got that. I think if I remember, the words were, okay, I just got the motor started back. I'm gonna start making my way, and there it goes again. Yeah.
Because you made the impossible turn and you had like 50 feet from spot landing to where you actually ended up, which was freaking awesome, dude. I applaud you for that.
What do you mean the impossible turn?
Well, in aviation, when you leave the runway and you're climbing out and you lose the motor, generally you don't have enough altitude to make the 180 and come back to the runway. Normally you have to go straight out and land somewhere out in the field. So the term in aviation, when you lose a motor on climb out and you come back and land at your point of origination, is what's known as the impossible turn.
So are you talking about the last video I just did?
The one with your motor out where you came back, landed on the soccer field.
Yeah, I was 1,500 feet in the air at the point.
I
but what he's saying is that the turn that you made is still called the impossible turn.
Oh, is that like more of a mental thing? I don't know. Like
it's just an aviation term. When you lose a motor on climb out and you're able to make the 180 and come back safely, it's what's known as making the impossible turn.
There you go.
It kills a lot of general aviation pilots because they have a tip stall and they wind up crashing because they force the turn because they're so low. So that's why it's just a term. It's not something you physically actually do. Some guys do. Some guys define the term, but it's really just a coin of phrase.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to practice it in the Cessna 172 from about 1,500 feet. Anything below that, you wouldn't make it back.
So was it dangerous what I did, or it was okay?
No, like I said, you did great. You had plenty of altitude and you cruised in. Like I said, you actually overshot what I saw as your point of spot landing. I think you even said you went a little long. So I thought you did fantastic.
I've always been very nervous to trust the glide ratio, and this first time. And it's funny, I'm looking at, what's in front of me, and I was 1.5 miles away. And I kind of quickly did, okay, if I'm at 1,000 feet, that's 6,000 feet, I should be okay, I think. And I had plenty of outs to begin with. Like there was the elementary school on my left where my kids go to school. There was a bunch of fields below me. But once I got over to that neighborhood, there was really little outs for me at that point. But I guess once I got to the point, I probably could have circled back if I had to, but I kind of felt like I was in the air enough. I was going to make it. And then, of course, I had to make a couple S turns and even a 360. And someone had put a comment, and maybe someone could make a comment to this, said, never turn your back to your LZ when you're doing that.
I think that more goes to the point of the wind direction, because you don't want to get downwind and then not be able to penetrate. So
Okay.
I think that's more to the point. But I mean, I kind of ran into that this weekend when I was flying. I went and had a great 2-hour session thermal flying. And then when I got down into the valley to my LZ, the valley winds were closer to 25 miles an hour, where winds aloft at 2,000 were only like 11 miles an hour. So I was able to be full trim, hands up, and penetrate no problem. And then the minute I got out near the valley floor to land, I mean, it was a bull ride, and everything you could do to control the wing and not get ate up when you get to the floor. So,
Kevin, where are you flying out of?
I live in Oregon. I live in Portland. So
Oh, no kidding. I grew up in Corvallis.
There you go. So we're flying the Coburg Ridge, just north of Eugene.
Okay.
So we're taking off from
college in Eugene.
Yeah, so we're taking off from the top of Mount Tom, and then we're like I said, launch up there is from a clear cut that the forest company just came through and harvested, and then we got permission. I just saw
you guys' video the other day.
Yeah, I've been trying to promote that, because as a club we're trying to open it as a new site. We got permission to land, and then the launch is actually from a BLM road, so we technically qualified legally under the Part 103, even though it's not an official site. So we've been out trying to pioneer it and feel out the thermals, the house thermals, what the air is like, and figure out if it's something that's going to be dangerous or something that, pilots can come and safely fly with confidence.
Can you see the group chat?
In our chat or on the YouTube? I've got the YouTube up on the corner. Chat. I don't think I have it up.
That's what she said.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Ha.
Here.
It gets bigger.
Down. Take that down.
Okay, I got you.
I'm actually going to be going back out there here pretty soon. I've got a house for sale in Puyallup, Washington, and I've got to do a flight out of Corvallis. So when I do, let's exchange some information like we're doing here, and I'll get in touch with you and see if we can do some flying, both free flight and some motor.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I've only had one motor flight, and that was really kind of a spur of the moment. I was out with a friend, and he was confident with my flying skill, my free flying skills. So we went out of Sand Lake, and it was a real nice calm day. It was like 3 miles an hour worth of wind, so it was reversible just barely. So he was flying Scirocco. So, so I just one simple pull up, turned around, motored forward, couple wing overs, just had some fun with it for a few minutes, and then came in and landed. We had the wonderful park rangers who were ill-informed, and this kind of goes with like Dave's video he put up a little while back. They were not so informed as to the legalities of how and where we could fly. So we had to have the long discussion about what is legal and where it's legal and how it's legal. And that it was funny because he tried to tell me that what we were doing was actually more dangerous than the drunken dune buggiers and drunken motorcycle riders and the guys that were doing all kinds of, and when you watch it, and I'm sure if you guys have been around it, but the guys that go four wheels in the sand are way more wild than any of us guys. We're way more safety oriented than anything else. And they were not having it, but we didn't get ticketed or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, good deal. Yeah. Take that number down. Definitely throw me a text. I'll put you in my phone. When I get out that way, I'll get in contact with you.
Yeah. I would love to do that. That'd be great.
Dave, I got a question for you. So I was talking with Tim Garvey, who's fixing my motor, and I said, Tim does every kind of flying, and he said he actually will go up to Lake Erie and fly off the cliffs there at downtown Cleveland. And I said, man, I really would love to get in there and start free flying. He goes, once you do it, you'll never want to do a motor again. How do you feel about that?
It's actually true.
Evan's saying no.
Free flying will make you a better motor pilot all day long. Period. End of story. End of discussion.
Kevin, go ahead.
It's
I wanna
50.
get- Kelby,
It's
I wanna-
50-50. My opinion is 50-50. When the days are good and free flying is on, free flying is epic. It's like going surfing. You get to use Mother Nature to its fullest. When it's calm, and this is where I watch you guys and I'm just like, oh, like I made the comment in your video when you rolled out of bed in your t-shirt, and I'm like, oh, I hate it. I so badly want to just get out first thing before the kids are up, before the wife is up, sneak out at 4:35 in the morning, get that hour and a half of butter ripping air, get those wing overs and just have that fun, that low ride, and then scoot back in, get the kids up, get everything going, have breakfast, and get to work or whatever's going on in the day. That ability to just get up, hit that quick hour, and then go on with what you want to do, that's priceless. I envy you guys for that.
Here's the cool thing is when I put my Buzz Z5 on my motor now, and I go up to 2,000-3,000 feet, and there's some lift and shut that motor off, you're pretty much every bit of effective at thermaling as you are free flight. There's a little difference because you got a little more weight going on, but you still can very effectively hit lift. You still can very effectively ride those thermals. You got best of both worlds at that point.
Yep. I want to talk to Kelby Cox. Kelby, we have a countdown clock.
Well, it says it's going to be tomorrow afternoon.
Kelby is getting his first motor and wing. Is that coming in tomorrow as well?
I got the wing already. I already went and kited it.
Oh, that's right. I did see it, of course.
And all that stuff. But,
What did you get, Kelby?
The Spider 3.
Nice.
Kelby and I are wing twins.
Nice.
Wing colors, everything. We're going to touch tips at Bad Apples next year with our two identical wings.
Yeah.
You ever get any flack for flying an Australian air design, or you get love for that one?
Me?
Yeah.
No flack. I'm flying. Who's going to give me flack? For Rick Davies.
Well, I mean, you're hanging from an air design. I mean, I don't know. I just got to ask.
Hey, that thing's been through a couple props and a couple trees. I
actually like it. I think it's a nice looking wing. I mean, from aesthetic standpoint, it's a good looking wing.
It's safe. It's pretty safe. Kelby, the motor's coming tomorrow.
Supposed to be coming tomorrow, but
and we all have your tracking number, so we appreciate that. We'll be at your house waiting for it.
Okay. That's fine.
So cool,
It's
man.
Amazon. You got it from Amazon, right? You can click the button that says "was not delivered."
Well, I actually got it on eBay, half off.
There you go.
Cool, man. Do you have your first flights ready to go, or what are you going to do once you get it?
Well, we're going to go back to Drew's and do a hang test and get the break-in run and all that stuff, and then we're probably going to fly it, but I'm not sure. But in a couple of weeks, we're going back to his school to fly for like 3 or 4 days.
Good for
Kinda
you.
like a
Oh,
mini-
Kelby, I am so excited for you, man.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
It's kind of fun because we've kind of seen Kelby's story evolve right in front of us. I mean, I was fortunate to meet Kelby at Bad Apples last year when he was just watching all of us fly, and he took some really great pictures. He even made Rick Davies look pretty good. And people are starting to believe like there's an actual real fight between us.
No, I know better. Hey, we just had a question, Nick. Quick. Anybody doing mooners?
Oh, watch my stuff. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Anybody? Anybody doing moonshiners?
No,
Flying
but
moonshiners, Tennessee.
Todd Scandrett and Tom Cobat are going.
Sweet. All right, there you go, Nick. Looks like Tom and what was Mike is going as well.
Tom Cobat.
Oh, Tom.
Cobat.
Okay, yeah. Looks like they're going. Yeah, I was taking a look at that, but it's like 800 miles from me, and I don't have the time, unfortunately. Otherwise, another fly-in? Hell yeah.
I think Bad Apples is going to be huge next year. I mean, there were so many people that came, and there's so many people that weren't able to make it. Larry wasn't able to make it. Ripa wasn't able to make it. So I think Honeycutt wasn't there this year. There's going to be a lot of people there next year. It was so much fun.
I've already
Mark's
scheduled
been over in Korea. Did you guys see his video he put out this morning? That crazy speed wing.
Oh man, that was wild.
It triple, dude. That guy took like 3 or 4 collapses on the wall. I was just waiting for him to wad up that thing. That was scary to watch.
I think Mark called it when he said that's the guy we stay here all day to get him out of the trees. Man.
Yeah, we got a couple bush pilots in our club.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't hit a tree yet. Dave is actually taking the tree hits for me. He's my personal stunt double there for the tree hits.
It was my second flight. It was one tree, and I don't even count it as a flight because I didn't land.
Hey, I got a question for you guys. Where do you guys see the sport really going and evolving in the next few years or the next decade, as far as possible regulations with the amount of people getting into the sport and these fly-ins? Do you think they're getting to a point where they're getting so populated that they're going to have to kind of break it up? Or
Yes.
something?
I see probably in the next 5 years of the FAA taking notice to us and probably doing some mandatory training and probably going way of Canada and start having to carry N numbers. You get way too many people out there doing some crazy stuff over houses and people complaining, and the FAA is going to take notice. And I think we're probably, I'd say, less than 5 years from seeing some sort of registration, just like the drones did.
Yeah. And it took a whole lot less time with drones.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
That's
the
because
problem-
everybody was flying them.
Problem with drones is that they're consumable, and the thing with this sport is it's not nearly as consumable. You can't just go to Walmart, buy a glider and a motor, and then go out and hurt yourself or your neighbor.
No, you're right. And I think the reason why drones took so much notice is everybody and their uncle had one and was flying it over, their neighbor's house, looking at the daughter. I think with the paramotors, it's going to be a slower track, but it is coming way of Canada.
I got to move inside. The weather's changing.
Okay, Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to be regulated, and I think that's something that everybody's fighting and nobody wants. But I think if we start trying to regulate ourselves, and I think that's whether you want to call it USPPA or anything else. I think training is going to have to be mandatory at some point, and there's going to be changes. And as long as you're flying safely, you're going to be ahead of the game. I think as far as fly-ins, when I talked to Michael Holliday about EFD, he said we could handle hundreds of more people. He's got that much room out there. We were getting crowded at Bad Apples. Kelby, you were watching everybody from the ground, so you can chime in there, but I think they still had room to go. I think eventually do you agree with that, Kelby?
Well, this was my first fly-in, so I was a little nervous when you could see 50 people landing and taking off and whenever.
But nobody crashed into each other. Isn't that amazing? Life was flying too. And even when you look up at the sky and you see all these wings, all these paramotor pilots, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy congested. But being up there, I didn't feel that way. I just felt like everybody had their space. Everybody was in control. It was pretty unique and pretty amazing to be a part of that. And landing, you pick a spot, you go land there. It's pretty easy.
Fly point of the mountain.
So I gotta ask, when you're at the fly-ins, do you guys have a daily or a periodic safety briefing where you discuss the radio channels, particular takeoff zone, landing zone? I mean, I'd like to say at Bad Apples. I haven't been to one of those types of fly-ins, so I'm curious how you guys interact with those.
Bad Apples was my only fly-in, and there was no radio. Tim got up and Tim Gaskins got up and basically on Thursday morning and basically said, okay, guys, this is the flight line. You're not allowed to launch. This is for the people to spectate. Here's the rules. No cigarette butts anywhere on the field. Make sure you clean up your trash. In this area is where we're going to be taking off. In this area over here is where we're going to be landing. I don't know. I'm trying to remember everything else, but it was pretty straightforward. And people just you respect the area, you respect the other pilots. It's not go out there and be gangbuster and do stupid things because everybody's gonna see you do it, and you're gonna get hell. So everybody just really was cool with each other. It was awesome.
Sure. It just looked like the field was really, really big, and I wasn't sure if it was like broke down, like land on this half. Take off, oh, sorry, I did that again. Take off from this half.
I'm playing the music again.
Dude, I'm
Um,
bad. I got monkey hands.
I don't. Yeah. So on the, I want to say the east side of the field, there was a lot of taking off, and it actually crossed. It depended on the wind. It also depends on the wind direction. I think everybody kind of followed. Like you can't say, hey, this side here, because on the east side, you know, if the wind's coming from the east, then you're going to be all taking off or landing, going opposite directions or crisscrossing like that. So it just depends on the wind. But
Yeah.
they also had people out there directing traffic too. Your flight marshals, I think is what we call them. So they were telling you where you could and couldn't go and helping you down with that. So, and yes, thank you, Nick. Nick also reminded me too. Tim also said stay away from the prison. Jimmy Carter Airport was off to the west. Stay away from there as well. But I'll tell you, and a lot of people, myself, Rick, I think may have had it. I think Ripa Ripa wasn't there. But you see the rock quarry. And if you don't see it the last year, you can see the year before. There's a lot of videos. The rock quarry is just spectacular to fly over. There's a lot of cool areas.
Did you guys see, let's see, this Tony's comment about the selling paramotors at Walmart? He says Dell's already planning on a line.
Hey, you know, if they do a paramotor superstore, you know, like Bass Pro, man, I'd buy so much stock in that.
Oh man, Coconut Titties is here. Coconut, it is time. It is time, buddy. You need to come on the show. And
yeah,
do it.
Absolutely, it is
Post
time.
Right there. It is time.
Who's got all the coconut?
Do not be afraid. It's time, buddy. Let's see if Coconut comes on.
Dave.
No, but it's funny, and the reason I ask about like the radios and stuff is like with our free flight community, when we have fly-ins, one of the prerequisites is that you have a radio and can communicate. We don't even allow guys to launch if they don't have communication.
I think it's safe. It's a good idea. It's not a bad idea.
Well, I mean, I don't once again mean to sound grimace, but this last year we've had 3 pilots pass away at our local sites, and all 3 of them were off comms. And given the circumstance, had they been able to be told that they should have been turning towards the beach or avoiding something, there's potential they could have avoided that and not become hurt or injured or dead.
Yeah. Mitch, I want to get back to a question that you were asking. As far as the fly-ins too, kind of how I feel. I think as our sport continues to grow, and I think, Dave, you tell me if you think I'm wrong or anybody can, I think we're getting to a plateau right now where it's going to level off for a while and then pick back up, possibly. I think and who was saying it? I think I might have been talking with Mike Cotter and Travis Burns, is that when one of the two of them, I think, said it was like the perfect storm 2 years ago when Aviator was really getting hot and Tucker was landing at McDonald's, and that's when everything went kaboom and the sport just exploded. And I think we're starting to see it starting to level off a little bit. Even though you see more people getting involved, I think the boom is starting to slow down a little bit and level off. But Mitch, I think, in my opinion, is that there's going to be more and more people trying to plan fly-ins. We try to plan a fly-in here, but I just don't know if there's any place to do it close to where we're at. But as more
years of Trump, I think it'll be growing pretty good.
So who did I just lose? I just lost Dave.
Oh, I'm here. I'm trying to free up some bandwidth.
Oh, okay. So I think as more and more people are planning fly-ins, it's less to travel. I mean, as much as I would love to go out to EFD, do I really want to travel 12 plus hours, 14 hours from Cincinnati to Fredonia, Kansas, when I can go 2 hours to someplace on the east side of Ohio to fly, or up to northern Pennsylvania and fly there, which is only 5 hours away. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. You can't hit them all. I think for me personally, I really got to do something with my head because I'm just getting all. I think for me personally, bad apples will be one that I'd love to do every year. You know, I've made some through these forums. I've made some very, very close friends that I talk to on a daily basis. And you know, it's funny because in that video, it happened. My camera on my windshield was rolling, and Rick and I gave each other a big hug. It's like we felt like we knew each other forever. And you know, those are friendships that, you know, hopefully will last a long, long time to come. So.
Yeah, the people I've met in this community have just been some of the best people I've ever met. So, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of the type of personalities that come out. It's great.
And there's really great people out there too, you know, and I you know, when I'm making a video, and Dave and I were talking about this earlier, I'm getting to the point where I just don't even want to make videos for a while, and I just want to fly and enjoy my time. I'm trying to adjust this here. But like, I do want to mention there's some really great people out there that have helped me, and I want to thank them. Like a Tim Garvey, who's fixing my motor right now, who volunteered to fix my motor right now. You know, I don't know what I would have done. Like Calvin, who offered his ideas, who helps a lot of people. Calvin doesn't have to be doing this and putting together a website to help people and answering questions on Paramotor Nation, but he does. So there's some really, really great people out there that are doing a lot of things for the people in the sport.
You gonna keep the trike?
Who asked that?
I did. You keeping the trike?
Oh, Craig. Yes, I'm keeping the trike. My son has made 6 flights so far. He'd be making a lot more right now, but motor's down. But yeah, I plan on keeping the trike because one of the main reasons I bought that motor is that I eventually want to get a 2-seater, and that's I'll go ahead and hook it up to. Did we just lose him too? We just lost Craig.
I'm still here.
Okay, I don't see Craig anymore. But yeah, I want to have a motor that I can fly a 2-seater with and take friends and family up as well. So I'm going to keep the trike. I'm going to keep the
I don't know. You keep landing in trees. I'm not going to fly with you.
No, I think that was Mitch that asked that question.
Oh, Mitch did? Okay.
Well, Tony asked, he says, do you have to have a flight pattern when you free fly? So when you free fly, the flight pattern is more to the point of rules than a flight pattern. And so if you've got somebody below you when you're climbing in a thermal, they can't see up through the wing. Most of us who fly have known if you get a buddy that's above you and you start looking around, you go, where the hell did he go? And he can be 20 feet off your wingtip and you never see him. So the rule is it's whatever's below you is what you can see has the right of way. So if you're coming into land and there's a pilot below you, then he goes first and you want to position yourself to come in behind him. If you're climbing in a thermal, then the pilot coming up below you has the right of way and you want to give way to him because he can't see you. And then with the ridge, there's the ridge rules, which is pretty simple. If your right wingtip is to the ridge, then you have the right of way, because the general rule is you always make a right turn to avoid collision. And if you're up against the ridge, you can't make that right turn, which means the oncoming pilot with the left wing turns out away from the ridge to provide you space for safety. Those are the basic general rules as far as flight plan for free flying.
All right.
They should teach more of that when we're going through training. I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, I agree. They need to adopt some of the free flight rules within the paramotoring, especially on takeoff, landing, right away rules, things like that. What? Why is he laughing at me, dude? He dropped stuff and interrupts the show. Now he's laughing at me.
Actually, I was just thinking Kevin's becoming a great moderator here. He's reading the chat. He's answering questions.
I know, he's hired,
Kevin's
right?
going to start a new show. I love it. I can't wait to start watching his show. It's awesome.
I actually have been debating that. You guys have been.
Hey, Crockett. Crockett, come on back. We're inviting people on the show. Would love to have you on the show. That way you can rip on me face to face instead of in the chat.
Yeah, me too.
No, this is awesome. This is
Crockett
awesome.
is my
Love hearing
biggest
other
fan.
perspectives.
Crockett is my biggest fan.
So Nick is asking about tandem flights and legalities of them. So Nick, rather than me trying to give you a long answer, I'll just say tune in this Sunday night. It's going to be on PPG Gorilla's channel. Well, it might be on mine with all this going on, or Dave's. We're not sure yet, but we have Travis Burns and Kyle Mooney from One Up Adventures, and they're going to be talking about tandem rating, instructor certification, how you make it all legal. There's really two ways. I'll kind of give you the briefing on it. There's two ways that I have found that you can do it. One, you can go to the USPPA and you have to get your instructor's rating, which means you need your PP1, PP2, PP3 instructor's rating, and it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars in time and travel. Or you could go find out where One Up Adventures is going to be, and for $1,500, they will go ahead in the course of a couple days, go ahead and give you the instructor's rating and the tandem exemption. So they'll talk more about that on Sunday. I don't want to ruin that show by talking about it now, right? Right. What is on Trike Flyer's head? Nothing anymore. Carl Schneider, welcome to the show. Carl is not a pilot, but he is interested in the sport.
Hey, One-Eyed Willie just brought up a real good point, Dave.
What's that?
Coconut was on here. Now he's gone, but then Crockett.
I have accused Crockett of it before. I have, and he denied it. I have accused Crockett. And wait a minute, he just went to go make dinner. Let's see who shows up next.
Yeah, exactly.
So Carl Schneider made a good point. He says interested in the sport, and I don't know how it goes for the rest of you guys, but I looked and watched for nearly 20 years before I pulled the trigger to go and do training, and that's my biggest regret, is waiting so long to do it. If that helps Carl at all.
Yeah,
getting good training is really what matters, and I think that's where I really see a change happening in the sport eventually, is getting some type of standardized curriculum, which would include probably doing toes too, to get people comfortable in the air before they do it on their own.
That's what Kyle does, and it's a great curriculum. He gets you comfortable on the ground, he gets you comfortable on toe, and then he'll progress you into motor.
Yeah.
See, where I'm at here in Oregon, we've got a 500-foot sand dune on the coast, and it works about 200 days a year. And so you can go anything from nil-wind sled rides to soaring it. And that's where we normally start out students, is there on the dune. It's nice and forgiving.
I flew Cape Kiawanda.
Kawanda, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I love that place, man.
I have a love-hate relationship with it. I love flying it, but I hate the sand. I'd much rather go fly off of an alpine site and not be all covered in that yucky ass stuff.
I motored over it and got up over on the leeward side of it and caught some serious rotor right behind the rocks and had a great time with it. Got out okay, but what a pretty area.
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. Where we live, we've got wonderful sites to free fly, but then also there's Team Fly Halo is here. Everyone knows Team Fly Halo, so Team Fly Halo is here out of Oregon, and they're a great group of guys to be around and fly with. We had a big motor flying at Cape Kiawanda, the place we call Sand Lake, and they were out there, and just like I said, we said it earlier, fantastic community, fantastic group of guys.
Oh, they're a fantastic group of guys. I mean, just awesome.
I found a nice little bunny hill down the way from my place. It's an old ski lodge that's closed down. I think it'll be one I can probably get some small little flights off. I just got to make sure that I'm going to be clear enough distance from the power lines that are out by the road, but it's a little ways away. I figure if I start low enough on the hill, should be good.
Well, don't count on that. There's been times I've gotten off bunny hills, and next thing you know, 3 minutes later, I'm still in the air. Yeah, it I learned to fly out in California off of Andy Jackson and off of Saboba. And there have been times I've gone off the little training hill. Andy Jackson has a built-up LZ, and there's a steep hill to the side of it that goes down to the parking lot. There's been a few times I've gone off that, and a minute and a half later, I'm still in the air. So never count on being really low on a hill if you got power lines or anything in front of you like that, because you could catch some buoyant air or a thermal coming in, and the next thing you know, you get popped up and you're in a world of hurt.
Okay.
So be real careful about that. Honestly, and again, I'm not your instructor. I don't know your instructor, and I'm not giving you advice, but honestly, it sounds like what you need to do is work with that instructor and just get that motor and go. Get up in the air. And go get some flights and start working on those touch and goes.
Good.
Less concern with getting in the air, more concern with kiting. If you're going to get out and work the wing, kite the wing, learn to control it, learn to load your body weight on it, get it so you're fly it so the wingtips come out, and then get it to correct, get the wingtip to come out, get it to correct, learn where its stall points are. That would be way more important than trying to take bunny hops down the hill, in my opinion.
Yeah. Kevin, he's at the point now where he's basically ready to fly as an instructor, is having him do abort launches now, powering up, get just to flight and then abort it. And so, yeah. And like you said, and Craig, same thing. I mean, even after you do fly, kite. And when you know what the difference between a P2 and a P4 is? Kiting, literally. And you can tell anybody out on that field how good they are by the way they kite, what they're doing with that wing, how easily they can control it, how easily they can launch. And kite. I don't even do it enough, but I preach it. Kite. And when you've had enough of kiting, kite some more.
Like you said, Dave, I mean, I take days that are dedicated where I go to Kiwanda and do nothing but spend that day just kiting up the dune, controlling the wing up the dune to the top of the dune. And then even when I could soar, I just sled back down, hit the bottom, and kite back up. And it's just repetition and repetition and repetition. And the reward in doing it is that short little 5-minute flight. You put in the work and then get the reward. Put in the work, get the reward. So, it's like I treat myself kind of like my parents did when I was a little kid. Do the work, get the treat. Do the work, get the treat.
Yeah, that's what I do with my touch and goes with my foot launching. Is I'll get off the ground, I'll go fly for about 5 minutes, come down, touch and go back up, touch and go. And usually by where I want to take a 45-minute to an hour flight, then that last one, then I'll go fly. But do that work, get those touch and goes, learn how to pull that wing, learn how to kite it, set down, reverse back into it, control that wing, set it back down, bring it back up, go, take off again. Just wing control, because that's what's going to save your butt in your air when that wing decides to frontal, or you take a 30%, 40%, 50%, collapse on one side. That kiting is what's going to save your butt.
Yeah, and it's the funny stuff that I noticed too that makes the big difference. It's not setting up the wing in a nice horseshoe and then just practicing straight pull-ups. Go crosswind and pull it up in a cobra and then dance underneath it to get it under power and straight. And that requires loading the wing, using your body, using the brakes. It's putting yourself into uncomfortable situations to become more proficient. Doing it over and over when it's nice and straight just teaches you to do it when it's nice and straight.
Just teaches you to do it. There are times I'll go out there, I'll just throw my wing out there. How you'll sit there and you bundle up and it's in a bundle. I'll just toss it out there, hook in, start getting that wing into a wall, bring it up, set it down, start, crossing over to the side, pull it up sideways, get it to touch one side, get it to touch the other, set it back down, go mess up one side, pull it back up, get control of it. Yeah, it's absolutely. Okay,
so I've got a question, because you guys are motor flyers, and I know that like Dave's been flying a trike, you fly a foot launch. What is your opinion on fixed bars versus weight shift arms, and how do they affect motor flying versus free flying?
I actually fly both. I fly trike, I fly foot, and I'm a P3 free flight pilot. My Polini 250 trike, my cross country trike, came with weight shift bars. And I flew it once that way and absolutely hated it because you couldn't, the weight shift bars had no effect on a trike whatsoever. At least my big old trike, they didn't. My Nitro has weight shift, and I've got decent weight shift on it, but it is nothing like our harnesses in free flight. Our harnesses in free flight, you can literally just go 90 degrees to the ground and have an arm hanging out. It feels like you're going to fall out of it. You cannot do that with a motor. If they could get the weight shift of a free flight harness in my motor, I'd be so happy. I would be tickled. Dave?
I don't think I'm educated enough or have enough experience to give an answer.
Why not?
Anybody else?
I don't have enough experience in that.
Well,
My
what
trike
was
is a different
what
type
was
of-
your experience when you went to Michigan? When you flew foot launch, did you fly with fixed arms or did you fly with weight shift arms?
weight shift arms?
And how did you feel that differed in the control of the glider compared to flying in your trike?
So my trike is a little bit of different trike than most people's trike. Mine has the connection points up here, and I'm not attached to the wing. The wing is
Right.
attached to the trike, so I have no weight shifting at all. I liked it. In fact, it's one of the things I did like is because, first of all, when I'm flying my trike, I'm constantly compensating for torque so much that sometimes I can just take my right hand and put it in my lap. I loved being able to stow my brakes. So I only made one long flight. Everything else was get up, fly around for a couple minutes, and land. Those were 6 of my 7 flights. Only one of the flights did I fly for about an hour. And I really got to do a lot of weight shifting, and it was really, really neat. And so I enjoyed it because I can rest my arms. So when I flew into the tree and I hung from the tree, 20 feet above ground, I did something to my shoulder that I haven't had taken a look at, that I'm getting to the point right now where it still hurts, that I want to finally get an MRI done on it. I just don't like to go to doctors.
Yeah, get that done, buddy.
I know, but knowing now that I'm going to be able to weight shift, I don't need to worry about it so much. But
Yeah, you do. Yes, you do, because you pull on one of those brakes too hard and you've done damage to your arm and knock it out of socket. Try to land a paramotor with an arm out of socket. I've got a friend that has done it. It's not pretty.
Fine, Dad. Look at an MRI.
That's right. You will. Otherwise, I'm going to tell your father, PPG Gorilla.
Oh my Daddy.
So one thing that I did notice is I've been going on a stupid binge on the stupid YouTubes, watching everybody who flies doing their talk shows.
Nothing stupid about that. Everybody does it.
Well, that's what makes it stupid, in my opinion. We all have our own wonderful show, and everybody tunes in, which makes it great. But it's cute and fun. But what my point is I've been noticing there's a lot of people that have been flying for, I want to call it about a year's time duration, but they're low hour pilots, and they're now starting to get out of the sport because they're finding they don't spend the time to justify the investment.
Really?
Have you guys noticed that at all?
That was me my first 6 months. I sold my foot launch because I hated it. And then I ended up getting a trike, and the rest is history. But I am hearing, not a large number, but I am hearing people making the investment, learning to fly, and that they come out of training, and whether it's incomplete training or it's a matter of the pilot has the training but then goes back home and doesn't have people to fly with or whatever, they're nervous about flying themselves, so it sits in the corner longer, and then eventually they get out of it. I think
Yankee says the Tucker God effect is wearing off. I think it's more to becoming a purist sport. The people who really want to fly are buying and flying, and the people who are what I call onlookers, they come in and they buy gear, and then they quickly realize when they take a collapse or have things not go their way because they try to fly in conditions that are beyond their skill level, that they just kind of peter out of it. They just don't have the fortitude to see it through, whether it's paying for training, because like I said, the gear's expensive. So a lot of guys, and I hate to see it how it goes, because I've seen it on the YouTube channels where they'll spend the $5,000 or $7,000 to get a motor and a wing, but they'll neglect to pay the $2,500 for training, and then they wind up a month or 3 down the road in the hospital, broken, hurt, with their gear for sale because they tried to go fly in conditions that they didn't understand how to go flying, or that they weren't prepared to go flying.
exactly, because it's too easy. No offense to anybody on the panel right now, but it's too easy to get up onto eBay or to Amazon or even private sale and buy yourself a motor that is very capable of killing you. And that's usually what happens. Somebody breaks an ankle, breaks a leg, they get hurt, their wife gets involved or their husband gets involved, or they start thinking about their kids and they get out of this perfectly safe sport. I mean, I don't have statistics, but I would dare say that our sport is safer than riding a motorcycle or even driving down the road.
Josh Perry
Um,
writes, having people to fly with is a huge game changer. I would not be far in without people in my area. I've yet to fly alone. And I have told that to Brandon. Thank goodness he created Tri-State Skywalkers, because it's been so much more enjoyable when you can get out there and fly with people, and so much safer when you've got someone saying, no, it's not safe to fly right now. You should resist the urge to fly and go sit back down in your car. But opposite of Josh, I do go out and fly by myself, and then I enjoy it. And worst comes to worst, my wife knows where my spare keys are, and my son knows where my spare keys are, and they can come and find my trailer and come pick me up.
let me ask you a question there, Dave. If you had my Nitro 200, right, had my 25 wing, the cushion that I fly, okay? If you had that sitting in your garage right now,
say one more time, you're breaking up.
If you had my Nitro 200 and my 25 meter purple wing, the combination that I mainly use, in your garage right now, and you didn't have anybody to fly with right now, would you take that combination out and go out in the field right now if it was safe flying conditions and go fly it?
No. When I get my gear, I won't go fly unless Brandon's in my ear for at least the next several flights, until
There you go.
I'll feel comfortable that I'm ready to do this on my own. I probably
And
could
that's
do this on
the
my own,
issue.
but I won't do it on my own.
And that's the issue with a lot of people getting into the sport, is they'll travel out of state to a good school and they'll get that training. They'll get phenomenal training, and then they'll go home and don't have anybody to fly with, and then that gear just sits there because they're too scared, because that's a real thing. I mean, I even experienced that when I first got into it. I did not want to go fly alone for probably about my first year.
I might be able to touch base on that a little bit.
Sure.
So I did training in January at Aviator, and we didn't have the best of weather. And when we finished school, some of us may have had 10 flights. I had 7. And when I came home, there's only one of 2 of us here on the island that I live on. And so there's basically me and a guy. And if he's busy, I go alone. And I mean, it's not like if I'm busy or he's busy, there's other guys. It's just, it's not, is either he goes alone or we go together, or I go alone. It's just kind of strange like that. But I accumulated probably 30 flights before February. So like within another month of getting home by myself. And I thought that was pretty good for not having any other support or somebody in the ear.
Yeah, that's a rarity. That really is. I've been in the sport now for 3.5, almost 4 years. I could literally set my motor right here, and I could take off. But and I do. I go fly alone. But I would much rather drive 90 miles down to Louisiana and go fly with the boys. It's there's something about flying with people.
Well, it's absolutely much better. I mean, by far, for sure.
I want to answer Kurt. Maybe you guys can help me with this. Kurt asked a question. Paramotor Nation have a section for people to locate other pilots in their area. The answer is no. But I remember something probably about 6 months ago, and I don't remember where it was, if it was on Facebook or something, where you could enter in your name and it was a pilot locator. What do you remember that? Because I don't remember it exactly.
I know that I entered my name into it. God, I can't remember what that was, but when I entered my name into it and stuff, there were a bunch of people that popped up in the area.
So Kurt, if you just go on the Facebook Paramotor page, and I bet if you put in there, does anybody know the website or link to the Paramotor pilot locator? Someone should probably be able to answer you on that. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, Facebook also has, groups from about every state that you can get into. And even if those groups aren't near you, they're probably going to know people in your area or close to you.
Yeah. It's not bad to fly alone, guys. And just like Todd's saying there, if he had to wait for someone to fly with, he'd never get to fly. It's okay to fly. I mean, you don't have to go far away. It was a map. Todd's saying it was a map. God, I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I cannot remember. Dave, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that. It's okay to fly alone. When you're under 20, 30 flights, I would say it's better to fly with somebody than not, because
Yeah.
you know, if you have a propeller mishap, you fall on your face, you know, and that prop zaps you, or a gust hits you, or something like that, it's always better to have somebody with you. Once you start gaining experience, absolutely go fly alone if you really want to, but even then, you know, there are risks. You know, it's risk assessment, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for very low time pilots, definitely try to seek people out and do that planning as you're getting ready to buy into this sport. Take those lessons, you know, start finding out where the local groups are. You know, and if you've got to drive 110 miles, you know, to get with a group to go fly that weekend, do it. You know, absolutely do it until you get that experience.
And that was one of the things I was going to say is, as a free flying pilot, you know, we often burn a full tank of fuel, if not a tank there and a tank back, to go to some of the sites that we go fly. I mean, 4 or 5 hours in each direction is not unheard of at all.
Have you guys flown off of South Sister by any chance?
I have not. I'm sure that there's a couple of guys in our group that have. There's a couple of guys here that have what I call millions of hours of experience that could tell you every ridge and every slope in the area that they either have or have tried to fly. So
I ask because when I was a kid, I grew up in Corvallis. My father and I climbed about every mountain out there in Eastern Oregon, went through about every cave out there too. And I was really thinking about taking some of his ashes, going back up to the top of South Sister, touching the medallion, and then flying off the top of it and dropping some of his ashes over the summit.
it would be beautiful. It would be absolutely beautiful to do.
I'll get with you and find out if we can locate anybody that's ever flown off the top of that thing. It's about a 5,000-6,000 foot ascent, as I remember. So
I've got a couple of people I could reach out to that would probably have a real good idea.
Okay, good deal.
I'm wondering if, and going back to that question, if USPPA has a pilot locator on it, the USPPA website. Does anybody know?
Yeah, I do not.
Oh, there's the bell. There's the bell,
Yeah.
Dave.
Ship bell. It is 8 o'clock. I don't know.
I'll have to find out.
That might be something really neat to either start or, you know, find out if there is one, and if not, to start.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. That's big though. So here's a question that came up a while ago in the chat, and I may have been on that phone call when you guys were talking about this. If you did, flying on a beach or training on a beach, okay. And I'm sure everybody at this point has been watching a YouTube video and been interrupted by a super commercial.
Yeah. And when you said flying on a beach, actually, that's exactly where my mind just went
If
to.
you're not training on a beach, you're going to kill yourself.
No, you got that backwards, Dave. If you're training on a beach in high wind, you will kill yourself. That is the actual answer.
So he's
If
saying-
I would have hit that fence with a flat top, I may have killed myself.
Well, it's got a crumple zone. You would have been great.
I would have hooked that
Flying on a
fence.
beach, actually, that's exactly where my mind just went
if you're
to.
not training on a beach,
The show just went to hell. Here we go.
No, you got that backwards, Dave. If you're training on a beach in high wind, you will.
okay, sorry about that. My mute was there. Oh, so I think Larry's saying, of going back, that
The Dominator would have saved me.
Triple extra small.
okay, so yeah, it's so when you're training on a beach with high winds, you're not learning to do any forward launches, and it's really not realistic if you live somewhere far away from a beach because you're not going to have those flying conditions, right?
There's a saying, beach air will spoil the hell out of you. You can kite in beach air all day long. It doesn't take a lot of effort. However, that said, my opinion is that beach air will let you do a lot more, like with bringing the wing over, touching the ground, bringing the wing over, touching the ground, learning to do cobras and things like that. But it will teach you nothing about real rotor and real air inland.
But what do you need? You don't need to learn all that stuff. If you're learning how to set up correctly and take off correctly as a beginner, you don't need to be learning about cobras and all that. You should be learning how to set up you should be learning how to take off in 2 to 3 mile an hour winds and take off safely to start until you become better.
Well, yes, but you also want to learn how to control that wing. You want to be able to maneuver that wing. You want to be able to have somebody come in and pull your A lines and give you a collapse and still be able to kite that thing and and keep control of it. And you know, your training with your wing never stops after you train. Your training never stops with that wing ever.
Yeah. No.
So I mean, yeah, granted, as a new student, you're not going to be doing cobras and things like that. But
Mike Cotter
after,
says the day that you stopped learning is the day you should quit the sport.
Yep.
There you go. I wouldn't even buy a Dell computer.
Yeah, I mean, like from my experience, to talk about the beach weather and beach wind, you know, the laminar wind, like Dave says, it's great because you really have that steady wind to be able to mess around, is the way I like to put it. You like to play with the wing because all you do is throw your body weight right back in the harness real hard. Like you want to just throw yourself on the ground like a child having a fit, pull whatever brake you need for correction, and it just snaps right back to attention. It's not a fight. It's not a wrestle to make that wing come right back to where you want it to be. Really, when you get up where I was flying, because it's a ridge with a slope, you're setting your wing flat here and then you're trying to pull up, so it's in rotor. Like Dave was saying, you're not learning the actual way that the world works, because the wing sits in a pocket of rotor and it has to come up to at least a 30-degree position to get wind and inflate. And when it does, it powers up so fast and so violently that if you're not immediately taking steps towards it and you're not immediately using that finesse to control the wing, you're either going to get plucked real hard or it's going to drag you backwards because you're going to be trying to pull back on it instead of committing to the launch. And then you get yourself into a predicament where you start to panic in your own mind because you don't know whether to pull the brakes and stop or to let it go and fly, and you get stuck in this middle, and it actually becomes really scary as a spectator to watch guys get that, because whether it's in a grass field or up on an alpine launch, there's almost always trees and cars and light poles and things around, even other people, that when you start losing the control of your wing on the ground, that's where the greatest danger happens to yourself and other people. You know, at least that's my opinion of it. When you're in the air, you have time to make corrections. You have time to consider your outs. You have time to consider throwing a reserve. On the ground, things happen so fast that you're kind of just a passenger at some points. And you don't want to ever be a passenger. You always want to learn how to be in control.
I can imagine as a new student, you're coming in, you're already scared. You're already thinking, oh my gosh, all the risks involved, and my wife told me not to do this in the first place. And now you're on the beach and you
doesn't
get
even know I'm here.
Right. That's even better. And then you get a huge gust that throws you and drags you across the beach, and you're getting all ripped up in your skin, or even worse, lifts you up and slams you down. Why would you do that?
The nice thing about the beach is you don't generally get lifted. The beach might give you a big gust and it will drag you. And the happy thing about the sand is it's very, very forgiving.
Okay.
But normally, you know, one of the first things we're taught, at least as free flight pilots, is that when you get into that scenario, it doesn't matter what line, you get a hold of a line, any line to the glider, and you just baba ganoush that line until you find fabric. And then once you have your hands on the glider, it won't fly. I don't care how much the wind is actually blowing. So it might be a real nasty pack up where you just shove it in your car and fix it when you get home. But when it gets to that point, that's that knowledge base where your instructor or your friend with you should say, you're not doing this. We're cutting it off because the conditions have gone beyond your skill level or your wing size. Even you'll see guys like out here where I live, they go and stuff a 25 meter in the car and they come right back out with a 12 meter. And then they start running up and down the beach with a 9 to 12 meter wing. And for guys that only have one wing, we're now grounded, we're parked, and we're now spectators watching those guys have fun. So like it was asked earlier about kiting your wing versus kiting a kiting wing. And that's where the argument where some guys will tell you, don't ever kite a different wing that you don't fly because you'll develop bad habits. But then on the other hand, you can't always fly the wing you have in all conditions. So having a quiver, like say having a BGD kiting wing that's not certified to do anything but kite, can allow you to learn some things that you wouldn't learn with your full size wing because you're not going to get plucked. You're not going to get dragged. It's a smaller wing that won't allow you to get into some of those situations. Whereas
Just
going out with your full-size wing teaches you what your actual wing does and teaches you how to respond and fly your actual wing. So it's really a toss-up as to kite a wing that's a kite wing or kite a wing that's your wing. And I'm sure Dave will tell me that he's got an opinion, and I'd love to hear it.
no, actually, I own 5 wings. No, you just actually, I was, when I was listening to you just about 2 minutes ago with the whole ridge and pulling that wing up into rotor, and all of a sudden it comes active, add the element of an actual cliff on that. So guys, when you pull that wing up, he's absolutely right. You're going to be pulling it up into rotor. So you're starting to, in a reverse, type situation, you're starting to, to really yank on that wing. All of a sudden it catches, comes up. You've got to check it. Or if you're doing a forward, you're coming up, it's not there. You can't feel wing, and all of a sudden, wham, there it is. And you're starting to back off a little bit. All of a sudden that wing starts coming shooting over. You're starting to check it. And if you're on an actual cliff, the problem with cliff launches is when that wing comes up that cliff, it sucks the wing towards the cliff. So now all of a sudden, not only are you checking a surge, but now your wing is getting sucked towards the cliff as you're running off of it and having to time everything. The first time I ever did that, and they're telling me this thing's going to suck your wing, be careful for it. You're going to want to check it as you're going off. I'm sitting here, I'm not going to want to pull brake off the end of a cliff. You're going to want to pull brake off the end of a cliff. No, I'm not. And all of a sudden that wing came up, and we started going towards the cliff, and it started actually getting sucked forward. And you're sitting there going, I'm running off a cliff. It's a long ways down. If this thing goes before me, it's going to take a frontal. I'm going to end up going down, and I can't use reserve. Sorry, as I just replaying what you were saying, I was just replaying what I had done that one time. It's like, oh,
well, but it's really similar when you pull into a thermal, a real hard thermal, because the wing will actually surge into that thermal. And a lot of guys get scared when they feel that, and they try to come and get away from it. And the safest thing to do is actually to core that thermal. You get in that lift and stay in that lift, because that's lift. When you exit the thermal, you get into that sink, and half your wings in, half your wings out, and that's when you'll bow tie. And
that's actually how I entered my first spiral, my first nose down spiral. I hit lift, I started turning real sharp, I came out of it, and next thing I know, I jinked one way and then jinked the other, and nose down spiral, one revolution, and came out of it. Hit the other side and came out. But
and see, and you're lucky, because oftentimes when you get something that will collapse that hard, you'll get a cravat because it'll blow your wingtip in through the lines.
But I know where your stabilo line is.
Normally it's a different color than the rest. At least it is on my wing.
I had to ask, and I had to ask. I kept on hearing Kyle talk about it, and finally I was like, which one's the stability line? He goes, that one. Yeah, tip. Like, oh, okay. Notice it's a different color. Yep, okay. Felt like an idiot, but hey, ask the question.
Like that goes back to that you don't know what you don't know.
Yep, absolutely. Dave, we need to take you free flying sometime, man.
Absolutely. I would love to. I would absolutely love to.
I think it would change your perspective on flying. I think you would find a whole new enjoyment for it.
It's tough. So I've got 4 kids. You saw a couple of them there, and one of them wasn't even my kid. So it's busy, single household income, and trying to plan of what I want to do next year. Hopefully going to be able to do Dave's cross country, want to do Bad Apples, want to do an SIV course, want to get down to Florida for a couple weeks for training with One Up Adventure, and go fly with Rick and the great big crane and fly over alligators. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to do. How do I fit that all into a year? And still,
I'm going to make this offer to you right now, Dave.
Don't make me an offer. I don't want to hear it. No. I don't want to hear blah, blah. I'm taking my head. I don't want to hear it.
Well, you're going to see this on the after show. You, your wife, and your kids are welcome to come out to my property out here. We got room for you. We've got fishing and swimming for the kids. We've got, guns if you're into that type of stuff. We've got we got ATVs, all sorts of stuff out here.
That'd be awesome.
I will take you down to Kyle. You'll give him a little bit of money, and he will take you tow training, and you will learn to free fly. You don't have to bring your motors. You don't have to bring your wings, because I've got all that stuff here. And come on down.
That's a YouTube video I can't wait to see. Both Daves and Kyle O all together in one location. That would be, dude, that's ridiculous right there. I'll even contribute to the PayPal on that one.
Dave, I will even show you the back pasture that you can sneak out of the house with your wife when your kids are asleep. You can go out to the back pasture where you can see every star in Texas. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'd love to. Bad apples, unfortunately, is happening the week before my kids are out of school. So that means I've got to make 2 trips down south. But I would love to circle around to Florida and head over to Louisiana, Texas, and come back up.
One of the other things I'm going to do too is I am in the path of totality in 2024. We're right in the center of it, and I'm going to be opening up this property to.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
Friends. Yep.
I want to do that.
You guys be my friend, and you just might get an invite. And
bribery for friendship.
Absolutely.
I'm still wanted in Texas. I'm not allowed there.
Oh man.
All your exes?
No. I went out when I was young, and long story short, I lived in Corpus for about a year, and then I lived in Odessa for about a year, and Texas was not my personality of place to be.
Now the show gets interesting.
Yeah, I was raised in Oregon, and now I live in Texas, so I get what you're saying when it's not your personality. It's Texas is a mindset. It really is. So
I met some real good people there, some really good people. I mean, it wasn't that there wasn't anything real specific to put a finger on. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, no, I get that. I definitely get that.
Kyle-O.
Is he in the house?
Oh, Mr. Kyle-O. As soon as we get done with this, buddy, I'm waiting. I'm chomping the bit. I see your new video. I already saw it pop up.
Kyle-O, I'm actually putting in a 50 amp service just for you, like I mentioned the other day when I was down there with you. So yeah, you're going to be up over here for the eclipse, and you got yourself a 50 amp service. You bring up your trailer.
This is probably a good spot where I should say again, if you want to jump on the show, I'm not saying anybody has to jump on the show, but this is completely wide open for you.
Oh,
Todd,
you know what it is, David? It's
it?
you and I as personality, but as soon as Kyle comes on, everybody wants to see Kyle.
I know. He's a superstar.
Kyle's a rock star. You can't beat him off with a stick.
No, you can't. That's why I go down there. I give him a hug every.
I'd like to see how Glee and
Falstad I still hug
together. Wouldn't that be cool? I'd like to see Falstad and O'Glee on at the same time.
Here, I'll be right back. I got to take this phone call.
He's got to go potty. Yeah, if anybody wants to jump on, I mean, I don't even know how many people are watching at this point, but if anybody wants to jump on, we're on Zoom. So you just download Zoom. You can enter in as a guest. Did everybody enter as a guest, or do you have to create your own logins?
No. I was just able to put in the enter the chat. It just gives you an option to enter the chat. You put in the code and then you join.
So there's the meeting ID 110-837-218, and you're gonna pop up in here. You can join the chat. And we're talking all night long. So Craig,
when are you going to One Up Adventures?
Well, I'm hoping to do that next year. So I got to meet them up in Michigan, but I'm not ready to do. I don't have enough hours in to do a tandem. I'm not ready yet. I need to learn more and to see more conditions. I'm not rushing this. I'm here for the long haul. I've passed the point of I'm quitting, and there's no rush for me. I just want to enjoy it by myself for a while, get my son up there, be able to fly side by side with him, and then maybe next year get the tandem. No rush. When it's right, it's right. When it happens,
it's a good way to approach it.
So Craig, you and I have had conversations. Would you tell us a little bit about how you got into the sport and how you met Todd from Resurgence and that whole story? It's a really great story. I'd love for you to share it with everyone here.
I was, like I said earlier, looking at this sport for nearly 20 years and finally decided, the time is right. If I don't do it now, it probably won't happen. I'm tired of waiting. I got to do this. And I got signed up, and I lost my leg when I was 18. And so I'm a below the knee amputee. And I had signed up with Aviator in Lake Wales and reached out to them and said, hey, look, if you can get a hold of Resurgence PPG and ask them to find a candidate that's also an amputee, I would like to sponsor him and joining me in the training class. And they, of course, were thrilled and pickled pink about the offer. Reached out to Todd Scandrett, found a candidate, and I sponsor his training. We had not the best of weather, but it was good because it taught us a lot of the things that you don't see on YouTube, like the para weighting and packing the wings, learning, you know, to check the motor and check it again, and pre-flight, not just the wing and the motor, but the conditions and your head, and make sure that you're, you know, clear to take off on all aspects. But anyway, me and the resurgence candidate, Sean Michael, we got in that class, and there was a good mix of guys in that class, and we were just running circles around them, which sounds kind of funny to say that the
He
two
also,
one
he's also an amputee as well.
he is also an amputee. So we did very good. We did, the rest of the class was also stars as well. Ron Torn was there from Lone Star up from Texas, helping with the classes. And it was just a good chance and a good opportunity. And it broke the ice with Resurgence. And I find those guys very dear to my upbringing. I lived next to Westover Air Force Base in Chicopee, Mass, which is home of the C-5A Galaxy, or it was at the time when I was young. But those are the biggest airplanes you've ever seen falling, not falling out of the sky. But the troops and the military men and women that serve for us, you know, we care for immensely. And the general public, I don't think, actually cares for enough.
I agree.
So we try to give them some support and support the program behind Resurgence. And, you know, this year we're actually going back down in January. I've already contacted Aviator and reserved another spot for a Resurgence candidate.
Amazing.
Todd is going to find that candidate, and hopefully the weather cooperates a little more than it did last year, and we can get another pilot in the sky.
It's awesome, Craig. Thank you.
You know, it says thanks to them in the program, really, you know.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, we feel like, you know, I'm sure Dave and, you know, we feel like with having this forum, this platform of Paramotor Nation, we talk about it, but we don't talk about it enough. It's never enough, it seems like.
Right.
So I'm sure Todd would say the same thing.
So I got a question for you guys, because this is something that gets brought up in my household quite often. In a self-indulgent sport such as flying a paramotor or a paraglider, how do we justify with our families the time and expense that we spend away from them?
Better than golf.
It's a good question. You know, I live on an island 30 miles out to sea off of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Nantucket. And it seems like every 2 or 3 flights, I get one that might not have an incident. Like local authorities don't come to check me out. Somebody's not complaining. You know, this is an island of great wealth, and people don't want to be disturbed. And I get to the point where I just turn around and said, hey, look, what do you do with your free time? Are you going golfing? Are you going fishing? Are you doing it from the beach? Or are you doing it from the boat? I mean, I don't understand. This is my 15 minutes of me time to get in the air and enjoy myself and be alone and unwind. And, you know, since then, I've been seeing less and less of the authorities, but I kind of had to, you know, give them a little bit of a push back to be like, listen, I'm just here for a couple minutes. I get 2 or 3 flights a month. I'm busy. I'm trying not to disturb people, you know. Good question. How do you get the family to support it? Well,
Kevin, I think that little angel that walked in behind you about 10 minutes ago, you got to put her first. And that's the most important thing, is family is always first. That's why I had to get up an hour ago and take that phone call from my wife so she can give me an update on her mom and how she's doing in the hospital. family's always first. So like you said, I got that, as a paramotor pilot, as opposed to a free flight, we have that benefit of getting up at the crack of dawn, before the sun even comes up, to go out there and be ready and fly, and usually get home before they're even awake. And for those nights that we can go out, look, we work hard, we take care of our families, we put them first, we make sure we're spending quality time with them, and they know that just like they like to go out and do their thing, we need our time to go do our thing. And if there's a chance that I can get my wife up in the air or get my son flying with me, and we can make it a family affair, even better and easier sell.
Yeah, I find that they're very supportive, though. You see more of the women are getting into it. They're going with their husbands to fly-ins, and I think Alex Salerno's, sorry, I can't pronounce his last name sometimes, but Skyfield Flight Works, Drew Solano, his wife Kristen, anyway, she said, we're there supporting the guys all the time. We want to fly too. It seems like it can bring the families together in different ways as well.
Yeah, we're getting some good comments here. Kyle says, with plain English, he tells Jennifer, I'm going to fly. And Yankee says that he met his wife before. He was flying before he had met his wife, so she knew what she was getting into. And Shane says, my wife knows I work hard. I help raise 2 kids with no complaints. So me asking to fly is not hard to understand. She is understanding and thankful. I used to play golf until I realized how really piss poor I was at playing golf. And then I quit. So by the time you go play 18 holes and you get there and you come home, that's 6 hours of your day. And your whole Sunday is pretty much wrecked by you get home at 1:30, 2 o'clock, and you're exhausted. So I think this is probably a better gig than going to play golf. And it's, I think in the long run, it's probably less expensive too, believe it or not.
Well, see, that's part of the big allure for motor flying for me is with free flying, like he brought up a little bit ago, was the para waiting. It's like a lot of guys that don't show it on the YouTube channels. Kyle actually, I think, does a great job of depicting it with his drives and his vlogs. But, there's times where I leave the house before the sun's up. Like I said earlier, I'll drive 3 or 4 hours to get to the hill and then wait till 5 o'clock at night before I even get to launch, before conditions turn on. And then I don't get home with the 5-hour drive till it's 1:30 or 2 in the morning. So with the super duper long days, I watch you guys with the motors, and I just jones for that quick jump and fly. So, that's kind of the root behind the question somewhat.
It's funny you should mention that, the para vlogging, and I don't know how Kyle feels about his own vlogging or how he felt starting off. And I know he's mentioned in videos, it's kind of hard to be in front of hold that camera in front of you while people are watching you. But I just don't think I'm interesting. So I really don't do it very often. I mean, I watch myself. I'm like, I don't know what people like, because I really don't. I started making these videos so I could relive the moment on rainy days when I couldn't fly. That's really why I started doing it. And it became fun for me. Editing is a lot of fun for me. But I mean, if I had to sit there and just talk, and I'll do it once in a while, but not very often. But Kyle's extremely entertaining, and he knows what to say. And if you watch closely on his videos, how he does sharp cuts and edits and just knows when to say things and make it interesting. He does a great job of keeping your attention. And it's, I'm happy to be, I wish I could do more for him and Robert. And I want to start Patreoning for Anthony as well. There's only so much you can Patreon. But I'm happy to do it for Kyle because he puts together a great production. And, it's like, I've said this about the Paramotor Nation. If you get entertained or you're learning, how much is that worth to you? If you go out to a movie and spend, now movies, if you take your family out to a movie, with 6 of us, I spent over $100 between 6 tickets and food, for the couple for $10 a month. Or however much you want to do. Craig Taylor, thank you for being a sponsor of Paramotor Nation. So, you appreciate that when someone does it. And now, there's certain things that cost money for these things to happen, not just equipment like this guy right here, but also the website costs a couple $100 to put together. Now that Google Hangouts is going away and we have to use Zoom, that's going to cost $16 or $15 a month to have that going on. So, it's great that we can do this, and I love this forum tonight where we're having multiple people pop in and out and just talk and speak. Mitch, are you awake, Mitch?
Yep. I was wondering that a minute ago.
Just keep looking over, going.
He's comfy.
It's a great community. I've talked before. I'm looking at Larry here in the chat, and you know, I've boasted about how kind and giving Larry and his wife are, and there's some great people out there in this community, and they should be recognized and should be applauded. And you know, I love that you guys are on here tonight sharing your experiences and your knowledge as well.
I'm glad to be here. I hope Larry's working on trying to figure out how to get that project going for me. I'd probably need to reach out to him via email again, have him follow up with that. But the Patreons are, you know, it's a worthy cause.
Yeah. What else is going on there, Mr. Flyer, Mr. Trike Flyer? What you looking at? What are you working on?
Oh, I'm working on a thing right now where I'm selling my house in Washington, and it's costing me more to get it ready. Or I mean, it's ready, but it's going over budget on projects, and I've got to have a conversation with my realtor tomorrow and say enough's enough. We need to get this thing sold.
There you go.
So, yeah, fun stuff. So if anybody's interested in about a 32 to 3,600 square foot home in Puyallup, Washington, with a great view of Mount Rainier, you just let me know. I've got one.
Is there room to take off and land?
Unfortunately, not.
Not
Or I should say, you're going to be committed to the takeoff well before you ever throttle in. But actually, Tiger Mountain isn't too far away from it.
So Todd's asking, any thoughts about today's accident? I don't know too much about it. Todd, if you'd like to come on and talk about it, love to have you on, buddy. Or anyone else.
I would love to hear more about that. I guess I missed it working all day, and you come home for dinner and David Wolf and David Ruff pop up, so you don't get all the current event news.
Dave, you know more about it. You were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I just know what came out in the local news from eyewitness reports. The wing was spiraling down, as they said in the report. I would really caution anybody to speculate or really even talk about what they think happened until we know what happened. It's kind of like Lydia as well. I mean, you're dealing with two pilots that, you know, have sure enough airtime up underneath their belts, and something happened, but we don't know what happened. It looks like both of them were resulting or ending in spirals. So I'm certainly not going to tell anybody what to do, but I know from my personal standpoint, all I know is what I read. Eyewitnesses says the wing spiraled into the lake. He was DOA. I don't know what happened, and I guess for my own thought is I really don't care to speculate on it until we've got some solid information. It's definitely a crushing loss to the community on both accounts, both Lydia and Mike, for sure. Very sobering too in a week.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to sound gloom and doom. It's just
No, I mean, in fact, someone just said
I've
here.
been in this.
Glenn says only state the facts.
Yeah, I've been in this sport now for about 4 years, free flying and motor flying, and I've lost now 6 friends, 3 of which have been in about the past 4 months, somewhere in there, and all 3 of them spirals. So, you know, I don't know. You know, I just don't know.
I'd like to know from anybody that does acro, does it give you I mean, maybe you're great at doing spirals and acro maneuvers. Does it give you a second thought to hear all these are happening, that you know that in an instant and just maybe even a crazy gust that could hit you, it's over? Does it make you think twice and say, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore and just enjoy flying over and seeing beautiful scenery?
I don't necessarily fly acro, but I do like doing my wing overs and spirals and stuff, just, to stay proficient and have fun doing it. And yeah, I will tell you that when people go down, I do take time. I sit back and I find some mentors and instructors. I discuss the incident. I review how and why things happened, and I make all the efforts I can to not repeat them if I can, educated wise.
Yeah, I know for me, the day that Lydia died, interesting enough, about the same time, I was down in Spring Hill, and I had done a series of spirals with Dave Hamlin's Mojo Power. And I was pulling about 3.5, almost 4 Gs. I've got a G meter on one of my instruments. And I get down and I'm talking about it, and Kyle overheard me saying that I was doing spirals. And yeah, he and I talked about that. I'm not going to say what we said or anything else like that, but he and I did have a conversation about it, and it kind of got me thinking. Next day, find out Lydia's gone. And then today, find out that Mike's gone. And, I know for me, I wanted to practice spirals because in free flight, that's one of the descent techniques. It's actually the quickest way to get down, get away from cloud suck and stuff like that. So you want to practice them, especially your exits on them, because a lot of bad things can happen with an exit. But the problem with spirals is, as you start going nose down and locked in, you go from no G's into about 6 G's, and then as you start going into a sat, the G's come off just a little bit, but you still can black out. But a spiral is the #1 way to black out quickly. I mean, like in 2 or 3 revolutions, you can and do black out. And if you go into a spiral, a nose down, locked in spiral, and black out, you're probably not going to wake up, because when you hit the ground, you're going to hit the ground at 50, 60 miles an hour, somewhere in there. It's going to be like jumping off a 2 or 3 story building, just, face planting into the ground. So I know for me, for last week, and then especially today, hearing that the eyewitnesses saw this thing spiral out of control, I won't be doing any spirals, not anything with my wingtip significantly below horizon, not anything over 2 Gs, which is, for me is saying something, because I've ridden in an acro aircraft. I've pulled 5, 6, Gs in acro and don't black out. But it's scary, The thing about Mike is, when I went over to his page after I found out today, just 5 hours before he passed, he was saying, "Hey, I'm here. Can't wait to go flying." 5 hours later, he's dead. To Lydia's last week, looked at her page, what the hell's going on? She had posted the night before. It's one day they're here, and hours later you're not. I'm sorry to be doom and gloom.
No, it's all right. I'm going to change the subject for a second. Okay. Yeah. Just to get us out of that. I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm going to try to make my screen a little bit bigger. So as we're trying to do things here, I am going to try to share this screen here, and let's see if I can do this here. Let's see, where's it at? Bear with me 1 second. All right. Can we see this? Or is it not sharing? Doesn't look like it's shared, did it?
USPPA.
Oh, you do see it. Oh, wonderful. Yes, that is the USPPA website. So there's a bunch of questions that can be answered in here. So,
hey, Dave, that is a great picture of you in that coconut bra. My God.
I don't see it. It was gorilla. What are you talking about? Shut up. All right. If you go down to the first page, okay. Very close to the bottom here, it says know of any incidents or accidents. And there's an incident database that you can click on here. And I guess that's really telling you more of to report it. But I think there is a database in here that you can find out about incidents, accidents, things like that. There was a question, is there more accidents for newer pilots or I guess tenured pilots? Hey, Todd, welcome. And that's a good question. And that might be a question that Todd can help us answer, being that he's been in the sport a while too. I would guess there's, stupid accidents like flying into a tree from a new pilot or from doing spirals from people that have been doing this for a while. Those type of, there's also in here, I know because I'm a member that I can go in here and I can search, and Larry had mentioned this before, you can go ahead and search for people in the area or look up people and see where they live. So even if you're not a member, you should spend some time going to www.usppa.org and going through this whole website here. So someone had just mentioned we should put it together a magazine with all this information, but there's a lot of information in here.
I know that from looking around and kind of paying attention up on the free flight hills, and I've heard this in paramotoring too, that there's a condition called intermediatis. When you go from a P2 to a P3 is when you're going to experience it in free flight. And then motors, I would imagine it's going to end up happening probably after your first year and a half. And it's where you start becoming comfortable and complacent. You have airtime, you've done those small wing overs, you've flown low to the ground, and free flight, you've hit those 400 or 500 foot a minute up lift, you've flown that ridge, and there comes a time when you start becoming complacent about things. Oh, I've done this before, it's never bit me. And I think that whether this happens to new pilots or intermediate pilots, the answer is yes. It's going to happen to you probably in training, if it's going to happen, or just after training, and it's going to bite you in the rear again, or at least rear its head again sometime at around a year and a half, that P2 P3 transition, or in paramotoring a year and a half into flying, where you've done that, you've flown low, you skim the ground, you do your foot drags, you fly over water, you fly close to those trees. That's where you're going to get hurt. That's where you're going to get hurt. And you really got to watch it, because you've done it so many times that, well, I'm just going to push it a little bit more, and I'm going to push it a little bit more. And it comes down to what Kevin said. You don't know what you don't know. And that's going to bite you in the rear.
So I just want to get a takeaway from you guys. One of the things that I took away was right after I got done with my P2 and went off on my own, I almost straight away went and took an SIV. And like I said, I immediately was safety oriented with being able to recover collapses. So what is your guys' takeaway on a motor standpoint with being collapse recovery oriented? Because it seems like the guys I find are mostly concerned with their wing quitting flying.
My collapse recovery comes directly from free flight. It operates the same way with a motor. You're just a little more dynamic. It's going to happen faster because of the weight. But it's the same thing that Kevin. It's the same training that both you and I have gone through. Is a wing collapse. Okay, no problem. Opposite pressure, fly away from the hill. Opposite brake, start working the problem out. Get control of the aircraft. With a motor, it happens a little bit faster because you're usually heavier on the wing. As you know, things become more dynamic.
Now, when you're motor flying, are you intentionally trying to remain away from terrain, or are you getting in near terrain like we do when we free fly as we try to bench up?
If you've ever watched my videos, you see those trees right off my wingtips, the ground right there, or proximity. Well, not necessarily proximity flying, but I do get in close to things. I do put myself into rotor. I do put myself up into lift and things like that. Maybe not to the extent of what you and Robert Michaels do. I still have yet to fly my motor midday on a thermally day. Can I do it? Yeah, I can do it. I don't want to. It's not the ride I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, flying's supposed to be enjoyable, and the minute it becomes sketchy or scary or you don't feel good, you should take a time out and go reassess things. I like to do what I call my 3-step count, and I always ask myself, do I feel good? Do I feel up to this task? And do I feel healthy to complete the task? Because there's been times where I've gotten into the air and I couldn't tell you if it was air sickness or a mixture of something that I drank or ate, but I've gotten up into thermals and then gotten queasy and gotten where I felt nauseous. And then I actually had to make a mess of my shoulder a couple days ago because I had to blow chunks from 3,000 feet in the air. And I couldn't give you an answer as to why my body decided to do that. But
yeah,
sometimes that things happen.
Yeah, I hate that feeling, flying along, getting to lift, start getting those hot feelings of sweat, and then all of a sudden that stomach starts, and it's just like, oh God. Breathe.
But like you said, that's
breathe.
that intermediate thing where, if you always fly on the side of cautious and you don't fly on the side of complacency, then even as an experienced pilot, you're waiting for a collapse, you're waiting for a recovery. The response time to correcting that is so much faster than if you're hands off with your phone trying to YouTube or trying to Instagram, or that's another thing I see is a lot of guys are trying to become social media stars at 3,000 feet, and to me it's an unneeded risk sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you know, Scandrit? Sorry.
No, go for it.
Todd.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, buddy.
There he is.
Yeah, I don't mean to even suggest that anybody should speculate on the cause of the accident. Today was a tremendous day of grieving for me. Mike was one of the first people I met in this activity. I went up to Jeff Pearson's flying two summers ago, and I got there early because I didn't have anything better to do. And Mike was one of the few people that were there, and I parked next to him just out of a roll of the dice, and turned out to be a real nice guy. And he's been one of my most avid Patreon supporters. Really likes what I brought to the community and trying to hold some sort of standard of integrity to the training end of this thing. And the mess that it was 2 years ago, it's gotten tremendously better. And Mike was very supportive of that. So it was just a particularly sad day. I was looking forward to getting together with Mike at the Mountain City, Tennessee flying. I don't even think I'm going to be able to make it now because of some issues not necessarily related to Mike. But Mike, for the record, Mike was not an acro guy. He was a straight and level sightseeing pilot. He's in quite a few of my videos where we were together. I got quite a bit of footage of Mike, and a lot of it that I'd never even included in stuff that I posted. Been to dinner with him a couple times at fly-ins, and just a tremendous loss to the community. So, he introduced me to some of the rock stars that are the aging rock stars, I guess is the way to put it. The Keith Richardses of paragliding, the Barry Millers, and some of the older guys that have been doing this for a heck of a long time. And there was some speculation going around earlier that I brought to the attention of the wing importer, and we had some discussions about it. And he wanted to caution me against speculating on the cause of the accident as well. And I wanted to reassure him and the whole community that I come from a long okay, so there was a crash when I was in college. It was Erie, Illinois, 710, and I went out to the field in Pinckneyville, Illinois, and helped pick up parts from the accident and put on a flatbed truck. And I sat through the NTSB investigation on that accident live and in person on several occasions. It went on for months. They dragged the captain's name through the mud. Nothing really came of it, except they did get to the bottom of the accident. And unfortunately, we don't have the NTSB here. We may never know what caused Lydia's accident. We may never know what caused Mike's accident. We don't have flight data recorders. We don't have voice recorders in these crazy contraptions. I want to bring up something that I talked to with a buddy of mine tonight. He flies the exact same configuration Green Eagle that Mike flies. And I had introduced him to Mike, and we talked about, what does this mean? Is there a chance that we'll see more regulatory interference or involvement from the FAA? Actually, I think the opposite. you look at the inordinate amount of time that the NTSB and the FAA spends looking into the cause of accidents in general aviation airplanes. I think at some point in the near future, they may take a step back from that and say, you know what, this is no more important to the safety of aviation than the Part 103 community. You know, all of these tracking down these airplane accidents and issuing airworthiness directives and getting to the bottom of what caused an accident. It really doesn't change the bottom line. You know, these are, in a lot of cases, these are individuals out there just enjoying their life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're flying around and they have something catastrophic happen. It's no different than getting in your car. And this is how I tried to justify my own lifelong struggle with going flying. You know, when we do it as a personal pleasure type of pursuit, it's easy to say, man, you know, I just don't feel like it tonight. I'm not going to go. When you do it for a living, you don't have the choice to go. You're getting in that airplane and you're going. And it doesn't matter if there's a hurricane. It doesn't matter if there's terror threats. It doesn't matter if there's political unrest at the destination. I've lived through all of that and had to come to terms with the fact that you're going. And this is a different environment for us. And so is general aviation in most cases. You know, a lot of times it's pleasure oriented. And I actually think at some point, because of the manpower involved, you may see the FAA take a step back from accident investigations at the general aviation level and just say, you know, it's no different than having a car accident that nobody was planning on.
I can definitely see a point in that. I'm right there with you.
So you think that with all the talk, we were talking about that earlier, that eventually they're going to start regulating us more? You think they're going to back off more and more?
Well, I don't know. There's always this balance of, you know, how much does the government need to regulate the decisions that you and I make? Mm-hmm. And my entire life, the FAA has taken the stance, or at least it's been iterated to me that the stance is, we don't care if you go kill yourself. Mm-hmm. We just, when we start talking about you taking somebody with you, that's where we get involved. And you know, that rolled over to, you know, aerobatic airplanes that I flew when I was younger, guys doing crazy things. And I'm not even for a second suggesting that any of that played into what happened to Mike. Well, we may never know. I think the guys that were flying with him may have a pretty good idea. And at some point we'll probably hear from them. They need some space. I know who they were, and some of you may have met them as well. And I'm not even close to having up the moxie to approach either of them. One of them I know reasonably well. The other one I do not know who he is. But at some point we may find out what they know. So no, I don't see, you know, the regulatory side of aviation proceeds at the speed of a very slow moving glacier, and for good reason. You know, we have in place a lot of rules that have been effective since the earliest days of regulated aviation, you know, back to when the FAA was known as an organization called the CAA. And they don't like to make new rules too quickly. And a lot of times when they propose new rules, they have years of time to comment on it, and all of the people and the players that may actually be affected by the rule change have a chance to weigh in on it. And they know the consequences of knee-jerk legislation. And changing the regulations too quickly. So I don't think that we'll see anything out of either Lydia's accident or Mike's accident on the regulatory side.
I tend to agree with that. I think where the regulatory side could come into play is people flying over houses or flying too close to things that they shouldn't be doing, picking landowners off, scattering cows, that type of stuff. That's going to get us regulated. But I tend to agree with you as far as for the accident sides of things. No, I don't think the FAA is going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, not unless it was a tandem. Things like
Well,
that.
the interesting thing that you guys bring up about the FAA is also in tandem to flying paragliders. I also am a recreational drone pilot, and the FAA is now cracking down on that. So I've been following along with their directives in the way that they've been moving things forward. And when Todd pointed out that it's been a slow moving glacier for them to make any changes, they actually had a policy in place for the last 25 years that said the implemented rules actually were faceted rules and could not be changed by bylaws for a given duration of time. We just hit the precipice of that time frame, and so now we are actually looking at new rules and new litigations to come out of the FAA. We just have no idea what they're going to be yet.
Todd, there was a question earlier, and I think you'd be a great person to answer this also. And the question was, where do we see our sport going in the next 5 years and growth wise? And I had made a comment talking with a couple of people in the recent weeks that we're coming to a little bit of a plateau. 2 years ago is about the time when Tucker landed at McDonald's, and Aviator was really ground and strength, and it blew up into this where we are right now. But now it's starting to plateau, and it may pick up again later. Where do you see us going from where you've seen us started?
I agree with you. There was a social media impact on paragliding that was unparalleled. It was like all of the stars lined up and created this gravitational force into paragliding. I think I have said this before, there's going to be a huge clearinghouse sale of used ozone wings and nitro motors at some point in the future, because a lot of those guys took that, and I heard you guys talking earlier, took that gear home and got home with it, and flying it at home wasn't the same experience they had down in the training class, and they go out and scare themselves, and they're not going to sell the gear right away because that's part of their identity. They're a paraglider pilot, right? But they put it in the garage and they go back to golfing or hanging out with the neighbor kids at the pool on Saturdays instead of going to paraglide. And that's the unfortunate reality. I know this, my local group, which started out with zero, it was just me going out there flying the lone wolf. And this is going to be the topic of my next video. I built a group and I like these guys. They're all good guys. And some of them are fairly proficient pilots. Now, one of them was flying before I started, but he had lived somewhere else. And just by happenstance, we met each other when we brought all these other new guys into our group, and the group keeps growing. I mean, we went out last night and there was 5 of us flew. There was probably 19 or 20 people there watching, and 2 brand new guys that want to fly, 1 guy that's injured. So I don't think it's over yet, but I think there's going to be a plateau in that bell-shaped curve of the explosive growth that was the Tucker Gott effect. Mm-hmm. So where is it going in 5 years? I don't know. I honestly think that if we never have an incident with the loss of separation between a passenger carrying airplane, passengers being carried for hire, and PPG, it could go on indefinitely. Mm-hmm. The battle that is what it is between 103 aviators and Part 91 aviators flying general aviation airplanes, it's no different than going down to your local marina and listening to the guys that are, sailboaters griping about the guys that burn diesel fuel in their trawlers. And that battle goes on all the time. It's just what it is. I don't think that either one has either the economic impact nor the political moxie to oust one or the other. But I tell all my I rib them all the time, this is the only portion of aviation that's actually experiencing positive growth. All of the other sectors of aviation are dying a death of attrition because of cost and regulatory intervention. So they don't like
Well, see, that's where I get my background, and it's kind of sullies me in a slight bit, because I grew up in Hemet. Where Dave was talking about flying Saboba. I grew up in Hemet with Saboba in my backyard, though I never started flying a paraglider. My grandpa was a pilot, and we had an airplane at the airport, and I started my pilot's training at 13 years old. We had a little Piper Tri-Pacer. Then we moved up to a Piper Cherokee, and then we got a Cherokee 6, and you know how the progression goes. So for years and years, it was nothing but airplanes. Then, my grandfather passed away. You fast forward time 18 years, and then you want to find aviation again. What's the affordable way to do it? When you start looking at 15 grand for a pilot's license, and then $30,000+ for an airplane, $500 a month for hangar or tie down fees, unless you really have deep pockets, aviation's not out there for the average guy, unfortunately. And we want to sell it that aviation is there for everyone, but unfortunately it's not.
Point.
Oh, that might just be the reason why paramotors are so attractive, is because for the price of a sports bike, you've got yourself a paramotor and a decent wing and some training, and you can go out and do everything that a two-stroke motorcycle can do on the trails, but you just do it up in the sky. So for a whole $10,000-$15,000 investment, you've got yourself a personal aircraft now.
There you go.
Yeah, I mess around with that residential airport community.
Yep.
And there's been a couple houses in there for sale. And these are nice houses. They got, 2,500, 3,000 square foot homes with attached hangars. Man, it takes a long time to liquidate them. And you look at the demographics of the community, it's all guys in their retirement years. There's very few 30-year-old family raising, hardworking people that can afford to move in there for starters. And then even if they could afford it, a lot of times it's not their vision. They're busy with their careers or whatever. So I fear for the future of aviation in the American culture. It's not what it was. A lot of cases, that's not what it was because of cost. And 9/11 didn't help any. We fenced off and put no trespassing signs around airports that you used to be able to ride your bike around in the evening and look at airplanes. So the TSA has been complicit in the systematic destruction of aviation. And I do point the finger and blame at them, because there was never any common sense applied to a lot of the policies that they insisted we needed to put in place to keep aviation safe. It just didn't fit with a model of reality. It was some knee jerk, and that I think that's in part why the FAA is a little bit more restrained in looking at regulatory changes, is because they saw the congressional changes that happened with the formation of TSA. But yeah, it's something to be concerned about. I'll leave it at that. So
I'm actually quite surprised that TSA is still around, to be honest with you, with what they do in the airports and the regulatory and stuff like that the American people have put up with it. I certainly remember, I'm old enough to remember a time when I was in the military having to take a flight out to a new base, and they put me on a commercial aircraft where we could still smoke on airplanes. Your friends could come to the gate, they could come on the airplane to wish you farewell.
Yeah, was trying to help a buddy, a fellow Green Eagle pilot that we were talking about Mike's situation, and I was telling him a story about having had an incident and landing in Los Angeles, and that you know when you work for an airline, they beat it into your head from day one. Let the press be damned. Don't talk to the press. So even if you know the root cause of what happened with it, because there's liability attached to everything, you know, every single thing that happens. As an example, I had a lawsuit from having an issue on an airplane that caused fear in a couple passengers, probably caused fear in just about everybody, but everybody else was able to put it behind them. And one or two of the passengers were high profile passengers, personal assistants to high profile movie directors.
Oh,
and
boy.
This went on, the legal ramblings from that incident went on for about 7 or 8 years of my career, you know, depositions with attorneys, meeting with company lawyers. And I worked for a company that outsourced an awful lot of their legal counsel. So it was never in-house. It was never, you know, it was always, you know, going to Manhattan and meet with these attorneys or talk to them on the phone, at least give a deposition. And this went on and on and on. The point of it is that for all of my indoctrination and let the press be damned, you know, both initially as a new hire and then all through my career every year at recurrent training, we get to the gate, we let all the passengers off after this incident. And one of the gate agents comes down and says, hey, the press is out here. They want a statement from you guys. Well, she should have known. I mean, she should have been our first intermediary to
Line of defense. Yeah.
Yeah, run interference on this thing. So me and the guy I was flying with, we went down the jetway stairs, went out and went up a different jetway, came back in the terminal out of sight and went down to the baggage claim. We were waiting for our transportation. One lone, do I have to pay the tip jar if I call this guy a prick?
Go for it.
All right. This one lone press prick comes down to baggage claim and he sees us in uniform down there, you know, and he comes running up to us. Says, hey, you guys were flight such and such. He said, do you have a statement on what happened? And I was like, you got 9 seconds before our cab gets here. Get out of here. So nothing ever came of that, but like I said, the legal lawsuits of it went on forever and ever. So, you know, I was trying to help my friend through this because he's got questions now. He was flying. He's daily. I actually got 2 guys in our group that are Green Eagle pilots, and for whatever reason, they've steered themselves to the same exact wing that Mike was flying. So they got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And you know, trying to help them through with a strategy to, you know, is it okay to keep flying? Well, you flew last night and you were perfectly safe and the weather was good.
Pre-flight it, you know, pre-flight it. And I am certainly not suggesting that Mike didn't do any of that. I'm sure he did. Yeah. And the 2 guys that were flying with him, I think you're spot on. I wouldn't want to approach them, nor would I. You know, but eventually, you know, things will come out. So.
Todd, for the people that don't know, can you explain what Green Eagles is?
It's a 4-wheel quad. The guys that I know that have them have got 2 variations of engines on them. There's apparently a carbureted engine and a fuel injected engine. And the engine is a repurposed equipment engine. They can be configured for single pilot or tandem operation. My understanding is that quite a few of them were configured for the special forces with an extended front end so they could quietly arrive on the enemy and insert shooters. They were quite popular with the guys that can't run, can't lift, or don't want to expose themselves to that risk. They're foot steered. They fly with a paraglider wing. They do not use carabiners. So some of the earlier speculation I saw in the accident was that there was a carabiner failure. They do not use carabiners, so that is an invalid theory on the accident. They have rail system right about eye level or just slightly above eye level from where the pilot sits. And there's multiple choices for inserting a tempered steel pin to hold the risers. And then typically the risers are configured with a much longer brake travel. They are not weight shift capable machines. You can do whatever you want. You're not going to effectively change your center of gravity underneath the wing. So there's very little capability to weight shift the wing. And for that reason, I'm not a particularly big fan of the Green Eagle. These are paraglider wings and they respond well to weight shifting. Whereas the Green Eagle becomes nothing but a brake and wingtip steering manipulated machine. The Kohler equipment engine is the engine, I believe. You know what? In all honesty, I don't know if it's 2 cylinders or 4 cylinders, but it is a 4-stroke motor. And they typically drive, I think from the manufacturer in Texas, they drive a 4-blade prop. Most of the guys have gone to a fancier, lower drag profile, higher thrust output, 3-bladed prop system. All of the guys that I know have done that. And the tendency initially was to fly them with a bigger wing. And now, much like is popular in the foot launch community, guys have stepped the wing sizes down considerably for a little bit more maneuverability. And the exchange of that is a slightly higher takeoff and landing speed. And the higher wing loading gives them the performance that they're typically looking for.
Yeah, that's why when I saw the witness report, that really perplexed me. Is I didn't know Mike as a hot dogger. I knew, of him as the mellow, low, slow, straight level, So anyway, I'm sure you're right. It will come out as sure as Lydia's accident will come out. We'll start getting to know more of what's going on. And my warning with everybody is just stay away from those acrobatics for a while. Let this kind of be a cold sink in that you can post now, you can be on the show now, but 5 hours from now you might not be. So I know for me, I'm not going to be doing any spirals, not for a while.
I admonished my local group of guys that, I hope that everybody understands the physiological effects of G loading. And, I throw that out there to the whole community. You can't get a private pilot's license without some discussion about it, but you can go fly one of these paragliders for an extended period of time and never have a few subjects come up and the flight physiology, the medical effects of some of these influences that flying does to your body never really get discussed. And I'm not ultimately familiar with every training curriculum out there, but for the record, in a high G situation, typically what happens is your peripheral vision starts to fade and gray until all of a sudden your eyes and your retinas don't have enough blood in them to function correctly. They're very blood flow sensitive input devices, and when the blood is sucked out of your body or pulled out of your body by high G's, the typical thing that happens is you black out. You can't see anything, and it's very disorientating when it happens, and particularly when it happens with a very quick G onset. And I'm not. Don't misread that for a second. I'm suggesting that either of these two accidents were instantaneous or quick onset G induced, but anybody that's engaging in aerobatics, or even for that matter, high G wingovers, anything around that 60, 70, 80 degrees of bank on a wingover where the wing bites the air and it throws you around where it's parked, you're going to get that G loading. And G tolerances are subject to everybody's different. Short, fat guys. Is Gorilla on the panel? Let me see here. No, Gorilla's not on the panel. So but that body type, those guys are really good at enduring a lot of G's. It's the skinny guys, much like the gal that met her demise, thin, typically low blood pressure people. Almost immediately, the blood can pool down from their upper body and their brain and their eyes and their spinal area down into their lower body, because they don't build up the resistance to keep that blood. And there are techniques that can be employed. You can pre-tighten, fighter pilots typically pre-tighten their torso muscles before they rack into a lot of G's. And as dogfighting techniques have evolved over the years, we've gone from three-dimensional dogfighting to two-dimensional dogfighting. Most dogfights now, if you're not aware of this, are two-circle fights or one-circle fights in the horizontal plane. So by definition, they're very steep bank and high G's, 7, 8, 9 G's. Those guys are wearing G suits. They inflate, they squeeze their torso, they squeeze their legs, and they keep the blood in their body pooled up higher. So it's not allowed to get down into their legs and into their feet. So these prolonged G exposures can be tolerated.
How do these people like Kyle Mooney, or not? Yeah, Kyle Mooney, who's very
thin,
very thin. Yeah, he's doing it. Leah Catula, they're spinning so crazy. You couldn't get a roller coaster or an amusement park ride to spin that fast. How are they doing it? And they're not big people.
Well, my suggestion is that they have built up an exposure and a tolerance to it, and they are preloading their bodies. And a lot of guys that haven't done that aren't. So, smokers, how much sleep you've had, how hydrated you are, your general physical condition, all of these things factor into your G tolerance, and everybody's different. Everybody's got a different point of blackout. And then when the G's are relieved, everybody's got a different point at which, how quickly they recover to consciousness. So if you put the glider or the aircraft into a situation where you're blacked out and something needs to be done to recover it, if you've got a particularly quick susceptibility to blacking out and a particularly long time of recovery, there's that growing period of time where nobody's flying the airplane, the aircraft, or the glider. So I don't know. I can't answer for Kyle. I've kind of wondered that myself, but I do know he does a lot of SATs, and SATs are slightly lower G maneuver than some of the other maneuvers.
If this is your first time watching or hearing from Todd Falstad, Yankee and SC1, I posted earlier a link to the Paramotor Nation interview of Todd that we had a couple weeks ago. I have been known for saying Todd is a plethora of knowledge. Todd has been in aviation for many, 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 many years and knows more than just about anybody out there, in my opinion, but his wife would argue. But Todd has his own YouTube channel, Yankee in SC1, and you should definitely subscribe to his channel. You will learn a lot of information from Todd. He's got great videos out there, and it's always really a pleasure to hear Todd speak and share with us all of his knowledge. So I just wanted to plug that there, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure.
Thanks for that, David. I don't mean to come on your discussion panel here and be a know-it-all.
Oh, that's why
I was just grieving about mine.
I think we're excited when you get to come on, because there's always a ton that we learn. That's what these are for. This isn't just a hangout and let's drink beer and vape. This is let's
wait. Whoa! It's not.
No, well, you're not vaping. You're smoking.
That's it. I'm starting the music again.
No, this is all about. Always we do these because we want people to learn, and that's why people I think are turning in. It's not for the good looks, because that's not here. It's for the knowledge that we gain. So Todd, anytime that you can be on the show, it's always a great learning experience.
See, and one thing, like to talk about the topic of G loading is, like, I notice when I start flying, when I start loading up G's, it goes like, for me, it's like that three rules. is how do I feel when I'm doing it? So I'll start small. And if I don't feel like I'm feeling it, if I don't feel like things are going right, then I'll cut out of it. And when it comes to that, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with your end limits. And then when you start feeling that blackout, when you start feeling that tunnel vision is when you know to start backing off. And some guys like Kyle, I can only assume, have experienced it so much for so long that they have a much finer in-tuned feeling with where those edges are, that for us, when we start to feel the G's, is when those guys are just starting to get comfortable in those zones.
Well, Kevin, I think you can ask him that question this coming Sunday when he's on. You know, and it's not just going to be talking about getting your instructor, but also, I think Dave just went to the bathroom, but also, the tandems. But you can also ask him, how do you build up that tolerance? How have you gotten to this point? As I've said before, arguably the best acro pilot in our country.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's a great point to bring up, and it definitely will be able to ask that question.
Yeah. There you go, Dave. Now you're part of our group. He's got his wind indicator.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, we've been going a long time. Oh my gosh, have we really been going 3 hours? We've been going over 3 hours now. It's gone by fast. The girls have been coming down asking to use the computer. But
I had a question about reserves. Did you see that? Or did you?
Go ahead.
Nick Griffith said, oh, wait a minute here. Where am I? I saw one flying with a reserve or not, I thought. Or maybe I'm just seeing things.
Well, Glenn writes, a reserve, I believe, is always a good idea when you're flying after training. That being said, I still have not finalized a purchase on one, but I'm in the market.
Here it is. Yeah, and then it goes along with never trust a skinny chef. Shane, question, just flying normally, do you think a pilot needs a reserve or no reserve? I'd like to ask the panel. I'll give my opinion as well.
I say reserve always, always.
Todd, how many reserves do you fly with?
Me, one.
Do you think a trike flyer needs one?
Well, I have these guys that I fly with here locally ask this all the time: is do I need a reserve? And my opinion is what kind of flying do you do? Having a reserve is a liability too. It's like being a concealed weapons permit carrier and running around town with a gun on your hip. There's, for all of the safety and security it brings you, it exposes you to some liability. So, I had on that APCO harness that I used to fly with, I had that zipper break out, and it was always getting into the seat. I would push on it somehow or other and accidentally put a little weight on the reserve pouch. And on 2 occasions, one of them was at the first time that I went to Bad Apples, my reserve was dangling down there between the bottom of the cage and the ground. And I came right back around immediately and landed. And I had to take that thing off for the rest of the weekend. And when I got home, I double stitched it and sewed it. And then I finally realized it was the teeth of the zipper that were coming off, in the middle, they would come apart. And I had it happen to me a second time. I finally ditched the whole harness. So, it possibly could save your life, but the guys that fly with 2 of them, they're engaging in in-flight behavior I'm not willing to. They're intentionally putting themselves in a lot of situations.
I don't have a reserved because on my truck now, when I get the foot launching, I plan to get a reserve and to get trained on it, because there's no point in having it unless you're trained on it properly, I believe. But with my trike, it's a different type of trike where I've got the bars coming over here and my wing attaches to the hang points, and I don't see any reason to have a reserve because it just wouldn't deploy correctly, in my opinion, unless someone can teach me differently. Because number one, it's connected to me and I'm only attached by a seatbelt. I don't have everything else that all the other trike flyers have, where it's pretty much the same thing as a foot launching. Okay. And so where would I throw it? If I throw it to the side, I'm going to be dangling from the side like this. It's not going to go straight above me. And if it does, it's going to get caught in my wing. So, of course, that goes to without saying of my trainer, which I don't want to say who that is. You all know. So that's where I'm at with it. Go ahead. Anybody else? Mitch? Mitch is.
Well, don't they make launching type reserves too for
Ballistic.
systems? Something where it launches out of a tube.
Yeah, those are
It's
ballistic shoots.
BRS.
Yeah.
That's a BRS system. What you could do, Dave, in the eye of the discussion, is you could use a lap mounted reserve with long bridle attachments.
Okay.
And then you would wear the reserve like a fanny pack on your lap with the bridles attaching to where your carabiners are. And in the event of a reserve toss, all you'd have to do is get it straight up out of the cage. You wouldn't want to go sideways with it, but if you went straight up overhead, as long as it cleared the bar, as long as your main diaper went outside of your flight cage, it would deploy itself and then would hang from your hang point, allowing you to descend arguably controlled.
That's what I'm curious is how are those going to attach to the hang points and not get
So the reserve is in a diaper, it's in a container, and then it's got the bridle that comes out of it. So when you pull the reserve, you're actually leaving what would be like the fanny pack attached to you, but the reserve comes out, diaper and handle, and you throw the whole thing as a unit. It's like basically grabbing a pillow and just throwing a whole pillow out of your lap.
Okay. I'll have to check into that. Yeah.
Yeah, it will work for you. Actually, Todd, it's interesting that you had that experience because just about 4 days ago, I've got on video, it's going to be a video coming out, parachute came loose. Same scenario is that somehow it detached from the side of my unit and was hanging, a foot or two, the whole unit, not, the diaper didn't come out, but the whole unit detached. I had just taken off and you can actually hear me reacting to it as I'm sitting there checking my lines. I always make a glance at my reserve and I glance down and it's not there. I look down, the camera doesn't see it hanging, but you hear me clearly reacting to it. I got down 10 feet over the ground, spun back around, and landed immediately. Spooky, because I've seen videos of those things deploying, when you're flying and they shouldn't be deploying.
Dave, you had a good video that came, a 2-part video. I'm just looking at some of the questions here about what you have in your bag. I'm sorry about these cats. I've got 9 cats freaking all over the place, tearing down my screen here.
We're going to call you the old cat lady now.
Oh gosh, they're all over the friggin' place. So Dave, you had a good video of what's in the bag. Control your kittens. Get out the screen. What you have in your bag, what you've got in your truck. And so that's good. And maybe, I don't know if more people would want to see more videos just to get more opinions of what you carry. Do you, someone saying, do you carry a knife, hook knives, things like that? And what do you carry in your bag? So I think it'd be good for more and more videos of people saying, this is what I carry in and all that stuff.
Yeah, my next video is actually going to be my belly bag that I carry in flight with me. And yes, that's where my knife is.
Okay.
Going back to the reserve, the instructor that I learned with doesn't carry a reserve. He's a very well known in the paramotor community. Love him to death. He doesn't carry one, and I would not make my first solo flight until I had one, because my thought is yeah, it is a liability, but it's part of the pre-flight check, and so was this one that came loose. But I would rather have it. His whole thing is, well, you're not going to put yourself into conditions midday where you may need a reserve. Well, no, I'm not. But you know what? Rotor happens, wind happens, and an aircraft happens, another paramotor pilot happens. Something happens.
Well, we've got that video that Tom just posted, that pilot's wing folding up on him at 200 feet over and him going into the freaking cornfield. I mean, it is and does happen, and we can't be blind to it.
Kevin, watching that video, I don't know.
Or that guy getting attacked by the eagle. Did you ever see that one out of Russia where the eagle flew into the guy's lines and followed all of his lines?
Really? Now, that one that you're talking about with Tom, that gentleman, I don't think he had enough time to deploy.
If he would have gone immediately to the handle and thrown straight away, he was right at the save my ass altitude. And that also depends. See, this is another argument with reserves, is the size of your reserve. So some guys will fly at 100 kilos with a 100-kilo reserve, whereas some guys fly at 100 kilos with, say, like 150-kilo reserve. The size of that reserve will take time on how it opens. So a smaller reserve, you'll come down faster, but you'll get a quicker deployment. Whereas a larger reserve, you'll come down slower, but it takes more time for that reserve to open and deploy. So that in its own right is a science in the argument of what reserve to buy and how to load it correctly in order to be safe. But he was very low. That would be a very good argument to even ask.
And that collapse happened so fast and so out of control that by the time he grabbed it, and I mean, he was moving around so fast, by the time he figured out where his reserve was, grabbed it, threw it, he was probably 20 feet from the ground at that point, my guess.
True. And I have personally, with my own eyes, seen reserves completely and safely deploy at 150 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually can, depending on the conditions and things like that. They actually can open very, very low. But this gentleman with Tom in the interview, actually, if he ever watches this or is watching, first of all, thank you for that interview. That was an awesome interview.
Yeah.
But the way that he described it and the video and stuff is that happened so quickly, and he was already through the lines and coming down, that I don't even think a seasoned pilot would have the reaction to get a reserve out, especially when you're dealing with lines, because from what I understand, he went through his lines. I don't know. I don't think that I could have gotten it out that quick.
I mean, isn't your first reaction to try to save it and pull and open up your wing? And by that time, he was already more than halfway down.
You've got to have a hard deck. You've got, I mean, you've heard Woody talk about this with his acro. His hard deck, I believe he says like 2,000 feet or 1,000 feet or something like that. Where once you cross below that, you're going to your reserve. I mean, period, end of story. It's no more saving the wing, no more anything. You're going to the reserve. He was already so low that the hard deck didn't matter. And many of us do. I mean, I fly 10 feet off the ground, but I'll also do so in better smooth air. But when I'm up high, I have a hard deck of about 350, 400 feet. If I cross below that in something that needs a reserve, that reserve's coming out. I don't care if the wing's coming back. It's going out, and the wing is going to start getting drawn back in. So, I don't know. Maybe in my videos, you've seen me, I'll reach down. That's me grabbing my handle. After takeoff, I've gotten into a habit of checking my lines, making sure all my lines are okay. I check my reserve. I reach down and actually physically grab that handle, and then I go to flight as I'm taking off. But
Dave, isn't that a big difference between motor flying instruction and free flying instruction? Is in free flying, we actually practiced even on day one as P1s, was touching the reserve handle. You leave and you do 3 touches, you go back to the controls, then you go immediately back for 3 more touches. And the instructor wouldn't even let you progress until he was confident that you knew where that handle was without even looking at it.
Yeah.
Is that something that you guys practice in motor flying?
Was. Yeah. Well, no. In any of the motor flying or any of the training that I've ever seen, I have not seen that.
Because I asked Eric, and Eric says that they don't even have reserves on the rig at all when they train students. He says they don't let them have them at all. So
it's recommended to me that I don't carry a reserve for the first few flights just because of the bumpiness, and it's adding another equation into the factor. That's just with some of the instructors that I've worked with.
I've heard instructors say that, and that's very fair.
I'm not sure if I'm gonna run it right away. I got an Angel 140.
Yeah, I've got an Angel on mine too. I mean, from the free flight, we practice it. The motor side, I've heard a lot of instructors say no, they're not going to go up with the reserve because, as Todd said, and I wholeheartedly agree, it's another liability in the air. If a new student gets up in the air and starts hitting some bumps, most of us, we hit some bumps and it's just like, okay, no problem. A new pilot goes up there, hits bumps, God, they think dragons are on shore. It's they think the world's coming apart, and they may end up tossing that reserve and get themselves killed because they just tossed a reserve. So I completely get that. But as far as for the reaching down, that does come from the free flight side. It's actually the the legs, the chest, the upper chest, the pre-flight, get up in the air, lines, reserve, back to flight.
Think about the typical scenario where an instructor's giving instruction. He's familiar with the area, so he knows the weather patterns. He knows that, this is the typical evening cool down. The last of the strong thermals are going to end about 6 p.m. And maybe they have somebody they send up. One of the instructors goes up and flies.
I'm usually that wind dummy.
All right. So he comes back down and goes, he doesn't announce it. He just goes over to the other instructors and says, yeah, it's good. Send the students up there. And the students are all within eye shot and within radio reach, and they're going around the pattern. And they may do a couple turns in the air and try different trim settings, but they're not exposed to the problems that come from making your own decisions to go out and fly. It's a supervised environment. So I think, in the schoolhouse training environment, I think it's a pretty good idea to have guys on A wings without the liability of reserves. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely agree with that, because again, they may toss a reserve thinking that the dragons are attacking when it's nothing, and they get themselves killed or seriously hurt because they come down on a reserve.
Yeah, it's one thing I find to be amazing is that you guys with motors spend more time at or below 500 feet than a lot of you guys do above 500 feet. And it always surprises me, because in my aspect of it, the more altitude you have, the more time you have to, work out a problem or make a decision to abort said problem and say, go to a reserve.
Well, altitude's your friend. I mean, in free flight, you launch at 11 a.m. You're launching at 11 a.m. knowing you're probably going to be staying up until about 3-4 o'clock, because coming down in between those hours, it's going to start getting real dicey and dangerous. With motors, most of the time, we're not going up after 10 a.m. We're not going up before 3 or 4. We're going to get into air, so that we don't have to worry about. So yeah, they do fly low. Well, because they can. They got the motors. That's the lure to it.
Yeah, I had a landing the other day where I got into a thermal at about 5 feet off the ground, and I extended my landing by about 300 meters, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and like I was telling earlier is don't count that little bunny hill as you're going to land before those power lines, because I'll tell you what, you get buoyant, you catch a thermal, you're going to ride it right into those power lines.
Yeah, my toes were dragging the bushes, but I wasn't coming down. I was just sitting there floating along.
Yeah.
It was the most weird feeling to be, literally toes 18 inches off the ground and not landing.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, we've been at this 3 hours. I propose that we probably start wrapping this up.
Yes, sir.
We still got 29 watchers, but guys, I think we're probably I think we're done.
Well, we'll have to schedule this one to do it again. This was a lot of fun.
This was awesome. Great forum. I want to thank everybody who is on right now. Mitch, Kevin.
It's a great platform you guys provide.
It was great to meet you guys finally and see your faces, and would love to have more and more people come on. Todd, it's always a pleasure. On behalf of Dave and I, just everybody, thanks for joining us. Right, Dave?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dave. Appreciate it.
Yep. Likewise.
We'll do it again. This was a great. This is cool. This is new. This is something that no one's ever done before. So I really enjoyed it, and just hearing different perspectives and people that you see in the chat, but you don't get to hear them. And it's a lot easier. Kevin, obviously, you know this now. It's a lot easier just to sit there and talk instead of having to type.
Oh, I've been seeing it for a long time. I just didn't want to jump in and step on everyone's toes doing, like I said, the same thing everyone's doing. Robert's got a great show. You've got a great show. It's kind of seems a little ridiculous to go beat the horse one more time, but if you guys need, I can set up a new channel.
Well, Todd told me a long time ago, don't do it. So,
well, it gives me a lot of, it humbles me a lot, to see the people in my community that are willing to go stick their faces out there, have these discussions and open up their vulnerabilities. I mean, Dave, your motor out this week was, is really a vulnerable thing. Some guys don't and won't show that. And they hide all the flaws and all the errors they don't want you to see when they have troubles and tribulations. They only want to show you when it's good. So, that being humble and showing us, the real world of flying, it allows, myself, maybe others to have the courage to come out here express our thoughts and feelings, or open up to find out, Mr. Todd's got 1,000,000 years of experience. I'd love to hear more from him, obviously. The thing about this community, like you said, the minute you decide you don't need to learn more, that you've reached your precipice, is the minute you should hang up your harness and find a new sport.
I absolutely agree with that. As a host too, and I know Dave, Dave and I have talked about this. Actually, the panel and everybody has talked about this. Is for anybody watching, to come on here and actually do a host and stuff, and start opening yourself up with these videos of the mistakes and the triumphs and stuff like that. You'd be surprised on how much hate mail you actually get, or how much criticism you actually get.
Don't ever say you have an emergency landing if your wing's not on fire, because apparently that's the only way.
Yeah.
Actually, let's finish the show with that, Todd. In your opinion, and I'll tell you mine first, and then you can tell me if you agree or disagree, Todd. In my opinion, emergency landing is a landing that's unplanned and not under power. What is your thoughts on that?
Okay. Under the FARs, there is a very wide path for any pilot that declares an emergency. It's not for anybody to second guess. So under the FARs, the declaration of an emergency gives the pilot in command the authority to violate any of the other FARs to the extent necessary to address the emergency. So now you may have to defend that in court. Been there, done that. But you're clinging to we declared, or I say that in a crew concept, in a single pilot aircraft, I declared an emergency, gives you that out. Whereas if you don't declare the emergency and you consider it something less than an emergency, a precautionary landing, and you violate one of the sections of the FARs to meet the necessity to address that less than an emergency situation, you now don't have a legal leg to stand on. So from a legal standpoint, the FARs encourage you to declare an emergency. Now we're not in the radio environment. We're not talking to ATC typically. So the declaration of an emergency is something that you can kind of arguably do once you're on the ground. Well, I had an emergency landing. So I would basically tell all those naysayers to bugger off, to use a friend from our term from our British friends. But yeah, I'm in the progression through your commercial pilot training and into the airline transport scrutiny of your piloting skills. There's a lot of discussion about what constitutes an emergency and when to reserve and when to actually utilize that emergency authority. And it usually has to do with the protection of equipment and personnel on the airplane. So when a single pilot, it's not really as critical. If your motor quits working on one of these things, it can be more of an emergency depending on how close you are to landing safely, right? I mean, if your motor quits and you're right over the LZ, like happened when mine quit working, I just glided down and made a couple S turns and landed safely. In your situation, you had to make a determination if you could make it back to the LZ or land out somewhere. Even yours, with all due respect, David, didn't look like it was all that critical because you had lots of outs on the way back to the LZ. But yeah, emergency nonetheless. I wouldn't discount the fact that the motor quit and you wanted down the ground,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, guys.
I'm wrapping it up. Here we go.
Thank you, everybody, for joining both live and in the chat tonight. Thank you, Dave.
Been a blast, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you later on. Chat with you guys Thursday over on Robert's show. Enjoy.
Sounds good.
Adios.
It's a piece of magic that we need to release. Oh, I know you're looking for a good time.
Be sure to join us up on Paramotor Nation. Be sure to make sure that you guys are subscribing to Paramotor Crazy, to Trike Flyer, to Phoenix in Flight, and to PPG Gorilla and Brandon McLeod. Guys, thank you much. See you later.